The first guests were due in 12 minutes when I asked Paige if she wanted me to answer the door. I had already transferred the mushroom pastries to the silver tray, set cocktail napkins beside them, and moved the umbrella stand away from the heat vent so wet wool wouldn't smell like a sheep barn by 8 o'clock. I was wearing my blue blouse, the one Nathan once said made me look dangerously social. Paige stopped adjusting the white tulips and stared at me. "They don't know you." She said it lightly, almost apologetically, as if I had offered to greet them in my bathrobe. For a second, I thought she meant they wouldn't recognize me. That was easily solved. "Hello, I'm Elaine, Nathan's mother. I live downstairs. Welcome." Then I saw her glance toward the hallway that led to my room. Nathan stood at the kitchen island opening a bottle of red wine. He heard her. I know because the corkscrew stopped turning. I waited for him to say something. He pulled out the cork with a soft pop and studied it as if it contained instructions for handling his mother. "Tonight is mostly Paige's circle, Mom," he said. "It might be awkward." The doorbell rang. Nobody moved. That was the strange part. I had spent most of my life believing I knew exactly what my son would do when somebody tried to make me disappear. Standing there in a blouse he liked, in a house where half the dinner was made from my recipes, I realized I had never actually seen him tested. Paige recovered first. She smoothed the front of her green dress, stepped around me, and opened the door with a warmth so immediate it was almost athletic. "Marcy, you found us!" A gust of cold air entered with a tall woman in a red coat and a man carrying wine in a paper bag. Paige hugged them both. Nathan came around the island smiling, and suddenly everyone knew where to stand except me. Marcy saw me over Paige's shoulder. "Oh, hello." I opened my mouth. "This is," Paige began. There was a pause just long enough to hold my entire life. "Elaine," I said. "I was just heading downstairs." Paige's smile tightened with relief. "Elaine's staying with us. Staying." 18 months is a long stay. Some marriages don't make it through 2 Christmases, but apparently I was still a guest who had misplaced her departure date. "How nice," Marcy said. She didn't mean anything by it. That almost made it worse. I went downstairs carrying nothing. Behind me, Paige laughed and said, "Coats can go in the study," using the exact arrangement I had suggested that morning. My room occupied the lower back corner of the house. Nathan called it a suite, which was generous. It had a bedroom, a bathroom, and a little sitting area where the previous owners had kept exercise equipment. Paige had added a lamp and a beige chair that looked comfortable until you sat in it. I had put my late husband's walnut cabinet against the far wall, though it crowded the doorway by 3 inches. Frank built that cabinet during the year Nathan went away to college. He claimed he needed somewhere safe to store the good glasses. What he really needed was something to do with his hands after our only son left home. I sat on the edge of my bed and listened to another burst of greeting overhead. A man shouted Nathan's name. Someone dropped something near the front door. Paige laughed again. The mushroom pastries would be passed in 5 minutes. They were better warm, but not too warm. If the filling was still hot, people took a bite, burned their tongues, and spent the rest of the evening pretending they hadn't. I reached for the television remote, then set it down. The ceiling carried sound in pieces, heels, chair legs, the low swell of voices when a new person entered. Once clearly I heard Paige say, "I've been cooking for 2 days." That was technically true. She had cooked the onions for the dip on Thursday, then left the pan soaking because she had a conference call. I had not moved in with Nathan and Paige to become their unpaid housekeeper. At least that wasn't how it had been presented. After Frank died, I spent 7 months in the apartment we had chosen together and 2 months pretending I was adjusting well. I learned to sleep in the center of the bed. I bought 1 tomato at a time. I stopped making coffee after noon because there was nobody around to drink the second half of the pot. Nathan called every evening on his drive home. "You shouldn't be alone out there," he said one Tuesday. "We have all this space." I told him I was not out there. I was 48 minutes away. "That's out there in traffic." Paige got on the phone and said, "Come live with us. Seriously, this house echoes." I had laughed. "You may regret saying that. I won't. I'd love another woman in the house." She sounded sincere because she was sincere. Paige was not a woman who woke each morning planning new ways to wound me. That would have been simpler. She could be thoughtful in ways that surprised me. When I moved in, she labeled a kitchen shelf Elaine's Tea, even though I had never requested private tea territory. On the first anniversary of Frank's death, she left a bowl of tomato soup outside my door and didn't knock. She could also make a person feel like an unsightly electrical cord, necessary, useful, and best tucked behind furniture. Upstairs, applause broke out. I stood beneath the ceiling and frowned. A moment later, Nathan called, "Speech." There was laughter, then Paige's voice, muffled but recognizable. "Oh, stop. I didn't do all this by myself." I waited. Nathan moved the dining table. More laughter. I looked at the ceiling so hard I could have burned a hole through it. Paige continued, and he opened the wine, which is his spiritual gift. That got a bigger laugh. Nathan said something I couldn't hear. I imagined going upstairs with the empty pastry box in my hand, not accusing anyone, just walking into the room and asking Paige whether she needed me to heat the second tray. The picture was so satisfying that I made it all the way to the bottom step. Then I heard Nathan say, "She does make it look easy." He meant Paige. I went back to my room. There had been smaller moments. I could line them up now, though until that evening I had kept finding innocent explanations for each one. A couple from 3 houses down had stopped by in October with a misplaced package. I was in the kitchen chopping celery when Paige brought them inside. She closed the kitchen door before offering them coffee. In November, 2 women from her firm came to discuss a charity auction. Paige asked if I minded watching a movie downstairs because they needed quiet. The 3 of them later made enough noise to frighten the furnace. At Christmas, she replaced the framed photograph of Frank and me on the mantel with a white ceramic tree. She said the colors fought with the greenery. I had laughed then. Frank always did hate losing a fight. The photograph never returned. None of those things was large enough to object to without sounding needy. That was Paige's accidental genius. Each exclusion came in a package too small to complain about. By the time I understood how many there had been, I was standing inside a warehouse. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. For one foolish second, I thought Nathan might be texting an apology from upstairs. It was a message from him, but not an apology. "Could you put the other pastries in for 10 minutes? We're going through them fast." I read it twice. Then I laughed. I didn't mean to. The sound came out sharp and startled, as though another woman had laughed from inside the room. A second message appeared. "Please?" "Paige is tied up greeting people who didn't know me." I typed, "They're in the refrigerator." 3 dots appeared. "Yeah, I know. Could you heat them?" I looked toward the walnut cabinet. Frank's good glasses stood behind its doors, 6 delicate wine glasses we had used perhaps 9 times in 37 years. He had believed special objects should be protected. I had believed they should be used, which was why only 6 remained of the original 8. I typed, "I'm going out." Nathan answered immediately. "Everything okay?" I almost admired the question. I put on my black pants, exchanged my house slippers for low boots, and added lipstick in the bathroom mirror. Not because I had somewhere to go. I had no idea where I was going. But if I walked through that room looking wounded, Paige would tell herself I had misunderstood her. Nathan would follow me into the hall and ask me not to make a thing of it. I had been helping men avoid uncomfortable scenes since before Nathan was born. I chose my gray wool coat and buttoned it to the throat. At the bottom of the stairs, I could see shadows moving across the upper hallway. Music played now, something with a trumpet and no melody I could find. I climbed slowly, one hand on the rail. The smell reached me first: butter, wine, perfume, and the rosemary nuts I had nearly burned that afternoon. There were at least 20 people in the living room. Marcy stood beside the fireplace, telling a story with both hands. A silver-haired man occupied my usual chair. Paige was near the dining table, holding court around the mushroom pastries. Nathan leaned against the wall with a wine glass, nodding at someone in a navy sweater. I stepped into the room. Nobody fell silent. Nobody gasped. Real humiliation is rarely considerate enough to announce itself. A man near the front door moved aside. Heading out? I am, cold one, so I hear. I reached for the doorknob. Nathan noticed me then. His body straightened before his face changed, the old reflex of a son who knows something is wrong but hopes somebody else will handle it. Mom? Several people looked over. Paige turned, still holding my silver tray. I could have told them. It would have taken one sentence. I made the food, I live downstairs, and apparently none of you are supposed to know me. Instead, I smiled. I won't be late. Nathan put down his glass. Where are you going? It was an ordinary question. He asked it too loudly. For coffee. You want me to? No. Paige took one step toward us. Elaine, are you all right? There it was, concern offered at a volume designed for witnesses. I'm fine. Her eyes searched my face. For a moment, something like shame appeared there. Then a woman beside her asked what was in the pastries, and Paige looked away. I opened the door. Another couple stood on the porch, the woman lifting her hand toward the bell. They smiled at me with the uncertain politeness people reserve for someone leaving a party they are entering. Come in, I said, holding the door wide. They're expecting you. I welcomed them beautifully. Then I walked to my car. The cold had sharpened while I was downstairs. Frost silvered the grass, and warm squares of light glowed in every house along the street. Through Nathan's front window, I could see people crossing the living room, drinks raised, faces bright. From outside, it looked like a home full of people who belonged there. I sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. My hands did not shake. I almost wished they would. Shaking would have made the moment feel dramatic, temporary, something brought on by anger. Instead, I felt terribly calm. On the passenger seat lay a grocery receipt, a roll of paper towels, and a blue scarf Paige had left in my car 3 weeks earlier. I picked up the scarf. It still carried a faint trace of her perfume. I folded it once and placed it on top of the paper towels. Then I opened my phone and scrolled to a name I had not called in 5 months. June Bell answered on the 4th ring. If this is about my Christmas card, she said, I can explain the glitter. I closed my eyes. Behind me, another car turned into Nathan's driveway. June, I said, do you know if that apartment in your building is still empty? June was quiet for 2 full seconds, which for June was the equivalent of a medically induced coma. Yes, she said. Why? I'd like to see it. Why? Is there an echo on your end? There's suspicion on my end. You turned down that apartment when Mr. Givens moved to Arizona because you said the kitchen looked like it belonged on a boat. It does. You also said the bedroom wall leaned. It does. And there was nowhere for Frank's cabinet. I looked at the lit windows of Nathan's house. A silhouette passed in front of the white ceramic tree on the mantel. I may have too much furniture. June lowered her voice. Where are you? In my car. That was my first guess. Where is the car? Nathan's driveway. Is Nathan under it? No. Then I'm not coming with a shovel. Are you safe? I'm perfectly safe. Are you crying? No. That answer seemed to worry her more. June knew the difference between my public voice and my real one. We had worked together for 11 years at a medical supply office where the computers froze every time it rained. She could identify my mood by how I answered the phone. After Frank died, she called every morning for 6 weeks, usually with no better purpose than to complain about a neighbor who left wet towels in the communal laundry room. It kept me tethered to the world. I had let the calls grow less frequent after moving in with Nathan. There was always something happening in the house, though I suddenly couldn't name anything that had been mine. Tell me what happened, June said. I'll tell you over coffee. Tonight? If you're dressed? I'm wearing pants with dancing martinis on them. They serve people in worse, not in the good places. I'm not going to a good place. She sighed. Give me 30 minutes. The diner sat off the interstate between a tire store and a motel that had changed names 3 times without changing its curtains. Frank and I used to stop there on the way home from visiting Nathan when he first moved to Richmond. The coffee tasted faintly of cardboard, but the pie was honest. I arrived before June and took a booth by the window. The waitress handed me a menu even after I said I only wanted coffee. She was a broad-shouldered woman around my age with a silver braid down her back and a name tag that said DOT. "Everybody wants only coffee until they smell the fries," she said. "I can resist fries." "Then you haven't had ours? Are they good?" "No, but they're persuasive." I ordered pie. June swept in 14 minutes later, wearing a long camel coat over the dancing martini pants. Her white hair was twisted on top of her head and held there by what appeared to be a pencil. "You beat your estimate," I said. "I assume this was either a crisis or you finally murdered Paige. Would I call you afterward?" "You'd better. I have a tarp." Dot appeared. June ordered coffee and fries without opening the menu. "Persuasive," Dot said approvingly. June waited until she left, then reached across the table and pressed 2 fingers to my wrist as if checking whether I was still alive. What happened? I watched coffee spread through the tiny paper creamer I had dropped into my cup. Paige had people over. She's had people over before. She told me they didn't know me. June's fingers stayed on my wrist. I asked if I could welcome them, I said. That was her answer. Well, that's an answer. Nathan was standing there. The pressure of her fingers changed. What did he say? That it might be awkward. June leaned back. She had never disliked Nathan. In fact, she had defended him when I complained that he called too often after Frank died. She said having a devoted son was the sort of problem women should whisper about in expensive restaurants. Awkward for whom? She asked. I didn't take a survey. Did you tell him you were leaving? I told him I was getting coffee. You drove 30 miles for coffee? It's very important coffee. Dot brought June's mug, my pie, and 2 forks. June took the second fork without asking. Elaine, she said, I'm going to say something irritating. That would be unusual. Don't take the apartment tonight. I stared at her. You called me about it. I called you because you don't make decisions like this while your daughter-in-law is passing around your mushroom things, pastries. I know what they are. They give me gas. I pushed the pie toward her anyway. I asked whether it was available. I did not ask you to lease it in my name. You're angry. I'm embarrassed. That's anger wearing church clothes. I looked past her at the pie case. Coconut cream, apple, cherry, something purple that no fruit had ever volunteered to become. I stood in that room and waited for Nathan to act like my son, I said. He acted like Paige's husband. He is Paige's husband. I know. The words came out harder than I intended. June's expression softened, which I resented. I did not want softness. Softness was what people offered when they had already decided you were fragile. I'm not asking him to choose me over his wife, I said. I'm asking why being a good husband required him to be ashamed of his mother. Maybe he isn't ashamed of you. Then he's doing a very convincing impression. Dot returned with the fries. June put ketchup on the side of the plate in one careful pool. The apartment is available, she said. The woman who looked at it Tuesday decided she couldn't manage the stairs. There's an elevator. She didn't trust it. Neither do I. You're improving your sales pitch. How much is the rent now? June gave me the number. It was $75 more than I remembered and did not include electricity. My first thought was that I could afford it. My second was how little room that would leave for anything unexpected. Tires, dental work, an elevator that finally justified everyone's distrust. Frank had handled the long-range worrying. I handled the immediate disasters. It had been an efficient system until death eliminated his position without consulting me. I can show it to you tomorrow, June said. Looking isn't leaving. It can be. It can also be looking. She stole half my crust. I picked up my phone. 3 messages waited from Nathan. Where are you? Call me. Please tell me you're okay. There was one from Paige. I'm sorry if that came out wrong. I showed June. If, she said. Hardest working word in the English language. She knows it came out exactly the way she meant it. Probably. Doesn't mean she knows what she meant. That was irritating enough to be true. By the time we left the diner, the dinner crowd had been replaced by men in work boots and 2 women studying papers beneath yellow highlighters. June stood beside my car, coat flapping around the martini pants. "Tomorrow at 11, she said. "I haven't decided. Decide whether to look by 10:59. She hugged me before I could object. June hugged like she was trying to transfer information through the ribs. On the drive back, I rehearsed several conversations with Nathan. In one, I was calm and devastating. In another, I said almost nothing and made him discover the meaning of silence. In the version I liked best, Frank was alive and sitting beside me, and none of this had happened. Only 4 cars remained when I returned. I parked at the curb instead of trying to squeeze into the driveway. Nathan opened the front door before I reached it. He had removed his jacket and rolled his shirt sleeves to his elbows. His face looked pale beneath the porch light. "Where were you?" "Having coffee." "You said you wouldn't be late." "It's 10:30. "I called you." My phone was in my purse. That's where phones usually are, but most people take them out when they ring. I stepped past him into the house. The living room looked tired. Crumpled napkins sat on end tables. A wine glass balanced on the edge of the fireplace hearth. The tulips had begun to droop over the vase as if embarrassed by the evening. Paige stood in the dining room stacking small plates. She'd taken off her shoes. Without them, her green dress dragged slightly at the back. "There you are," she said. The silver tray was on the table, empty except for crumbs and a smear of filling. "I texted you," she added. "I saw. I said I was sorry. You said you were sorry if it came out wrong." Paige put down the plates. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. What were you trying to do?" Nathan closed the door behind me. The click of the latch sounded unnaturally loud. Paige rubbed one bare foot over the other. The evening was for work people and some neighbors. It wasn't a family event. I didn't ask to sit in Nathan's lap while you gave a speech. I asked whether you wanted me to answer the door. I know, but nobody there knows you. They didn't know the man in the navy sweater either. You introduced him. He works in Marcy's department. Then I'm sorry I don't work in Marcy's department. Nathan moved between us, though neither of us had raised our voices. "Mom, nobody was saying you couldn't be upstairs. Both of you said exactly that. I said it might feel awkward. For whom?" He looked at Paige. It was quick, no more than a glance. But I saw it. Paige saw me see it. "This has gotten blown out of proportion," she said. "Has it?" "Yes. You left in the middle of the party without telling us where you were going. I was informed I wasn't part of the party. You live here. You don't have to be part of everything we do." I unbuttoned my coat slowly. "I agree." Something in my voice made Nathan stop fidgeting. I picked up the silver tray. The underside was sticky, and one corner bore a new scratch. Paige reached for it. "I'll wash that." "No, you won't." She pulled her hand back. Nathan followed me into the kitchen. "Mom, can we please talk about this without turning it into some enormous thing?" I set the tray beside the sink. "What size would be convenient for you?" "That's not what I mean. You want me to understand that it was one party. It was one awkward comment. It wasn't the comment, Nathan." Paige entered behind him. "Then what is it?" I looked at her. Her makeup had faded around her eyes. She looked tired, defensive, and much younger than 41. When Marcy came in, I said, "You told her I was staying with you?" Paige blinked. "You are." "I've lived here for 1.5 years. "I didn't mean you were visiting. What did you mean?" She opened her mouth, but Nathan answered. It was just a phrase. "Yes," I said. It was. I washed the tray while they stood there. Neither offered to dry it. Afterward, I went downstairs and closed my door. I removed the blue blouse and hung it carefully in the closet. My coat smelled of diner coffee. I left it over the beige chair. Before bed, I set an alarm for 10. At 9:43 the next morning, Paige knocked. "Elaine? The grocery delivery is coming between 10 and noon. Can you listen for it?" I sat on the edge of my bed looking at June's address on my phone. "No," I said. There was a pause outside the door. But you'll be here, right? I slipped on my shoes. No, I said again. I won't. Where are you going? Paige asked through the door. Out, I gathered that. Then we're communicating beautifully. She exhaled hard enough for me to hear it. I have a 10 o'clock call. I hope it goes well. Elaine. I opened the door. Paige stood there in black trousers and a cream sweater, holding her laptop against her chest. Her hair was pulled into a smooth knot, but a strand had escaped near her left ear. She always looked most human when something escaped. The delivery window is 2 hours, she said. I can't sit by the door for 2 hours. Then choose a later window. They'll charge me. How much? That isn't the point. No, it's exactly the point. You've decided my time costs less than the fee. Her eyes narrowed. You've accepted deliveries before. Yes. So this is about last night. This is about me not being available this morning. You're making everything into a test. Am I passing? For 1 second, she almost smiled. Paige appreciated a sharp answer even when it cut her. Then the smile disappeared. Fine, she said. I'll figure it out. She turned and walked upstairs. Halfway up, she called over her shoulder. You know, you could just say you're angry. I did. No, you're doing this instead. She continued up before I could ask what this was. Saying no, apparently. A dangerous new hobby. I found my purse, collected my coat from the beige chair, and carried Paige's blue scarf upstairs. She had left her laptop open on the dining table and was speaking to someone through a headset in the kitchen. I laid the scarf beside her keys. She glanced at it, then at me. I pointed to the front door. I'm leaving. She held up one finger. Wait. I shook my head and left. June lived in a 6-story brick building called the Waverly, though there was nothing Waverly about it. It had been built with the confidence of an era that expected walls to remain where they were put. 2 concrete urns guarded the entrance. In summer, they held red geraniums. In winter, they held frozen dirt and cigarette butts. June waited inside the lobby wearing purple eyeglasses and a sweater with a large embroidered bird across the chest. What is that? I asked. A heron. It looks judgmental. It's seen your coat. The lobby smelled like lemon cleaner and someone's toast. A row of brass mailboxes covered one wall. Beside them, a bulletin board advertised a book exchange, chair yoga, and a missing gray glove that had apparently been found, lost again, and found a second time. The elevator doors opened with a reluctant shudder. Still trustworthy? I asked. It hasn't killed anyone this week. Today is Saturday, exactly. Strong numbers. The vacant apartment was on the 4th floor, 3 doors down from June's. She opened it with a key attached to a plastic tag and stood aside. Prepare to be underwhelmed. I stepped in. Cold, stale air met me. The living room was narrow but bright, with 2 windows overlooking the parking lot and the bare tops of maple trees. The carpet was the color of oatmeal. A previous tenant had left 4 small nail holes above the radiator and a faint square on the wall where a picture had protected the paint from time. The kitchen was exactly as I remembered. 1 wall of cabinets, a short counter, and a stove so close to the sink that an energetic person could cook and wash dishes without moving her feet. It's worse, I said. They cleaned it. That's what worries me. June opened the refrigerator. New shelf. A palace. You said you wanted to look. I'm looking. Try looking without insulting its mother. I walked into the bedroom. The wall still appeared to lean, though June claimed it was an optical illusion caused by the closet. I stood where a bed would go and pictured waking there. No footsteps overhead that I recognized. No smell of Nathan's coffee. No Paige calling from the stairs because a package had arrived. The thought brought relief so quickly that it frightened me. I turned toward the window. The parking lot below was half full. A man in a red cap scraped frost from a blue sedan, while a woman leaned out of a 3rd-floor window to shout advice he clearly did not want. Near the side entrance, 2 women loaded foil-covered dishes into a cart. What's happening down there? I asked. Saturday supper rotation. Is that mandatory? Nothing involving Mrs. Alvarez's baked ziti feels optional, but officially, no. I don't want to move into a building full of people who monitor whether I'm eating. You moved into a house with your son. That was different." June did not answer. The bathroom had yellow tile, a medicine cabinet with 3 narrow shelves, and a tub with metal grab bars added after the photograph I had seen months earlier. I appreciated the grab bars and hated that I appreciated them. I returned to the living room and measured the longest wall with my eyes. "The cabinet won't fit," I said. "No, I could put it by the windows. You couldn't open the bedroom door. What if the sofa went there? Then you'd have to sit in the cabinet." I crouched to look at the baseboard outlet, although I knew absolutely nothing about electrical outlets. June leaned against the wall. "You don't have to decide today. How quickly do they need an answer?" "A couple came Thursday. They liked it. Did they insult the kitchen? They were younger. They called it efficient. Awful people. They haven't applied yet." I stood. "You know that because?" I asked. "Before or after I called?" "After." So much for looking without leaving. June reached into her large leather purse and withdrew a folded sheet of paper. "I did not ask you to get that. You also didn't ask me to meet you at a diner in cocktail pants." I took the paper. The application was a single page. Name, income, references, emergency contact. Nathan's name rose in my mind before I could stop it. I imagined him receiving a call from the building and learning that his mother was considering moving out from a stranger. I'm not filling this in here. I didn't bring a pen. "You have a pencil in your hair." She touched her bun, surprised to find it there. We walked to June's apartment for coffee. Hers was the mirror image of the vacant one, but she had filled it so completely that the size disappeared. Books were stacked beneath end tables. Plants crowded the windows. A ceramic rooster stood on top of the television with the authority of a network executive. "You have too much stuff," I said. "You have a cabinet the size of a confession booth. Frank made it." "I know." She poured coffee into 2 mismatched mugs and pushed a plate of almond cookies toward me. I sat at her small table with the application folded beneath my hand. "If I took it," I said, "I'd have to sell the cabinet." June stirred sugar into her coffee. "Maybe. I could store it." "Where?" "Nathan's garage. You want to move out of his house and leave your largest piece of furniture there as collateral?" I didn't say collateral. You thought it loudly. I broke a cookie in half. The cabinet was not our most valuable possession. Frank had never been a master craftsman. One door stuck in humid weather and the lower shelf dipped in the middle because he had underestimated the weight of glass. But his fingerprints were still visible in the stain near the back hinge. I had found them when I cleaned it after he died and had not touched that spot since. "There may be another apartment," June said. "This one is available. You hated it 9 months ago. 9 months ago I thought I had somewhere else to be." The words sat between us. June stopped stirring. "I'm not saying take it," she said. "I'm saying don't stay somewhere only because the furniture fits." I folded the application again, smaller this time, and put it in my purse. When I returned to Nathan's house, 6 paper grocery bags covered the kitchen counters. Paige was putting containers into the refrigerator with short, angry movements. Her headset lay beside the sink. "The delivery came," I said. "Yes, I see that." I had to leave my call twice because he couldn't find the house. Then he said he couldn't carry everything to the door. "Did you manage?" She shoved a carton of eggs onto the shelf. "Obviously." I hung my coat in the hall closet. Then that worked out. "No, Elaine, it did not work out. I was presenting to 12 people. I'm sorry it interrupted your call." "Are you?" "Yes." She looked at me as if disappointment would have been easier than sincerity. "Where did you go?" "To see June. You drove all that way just to see June." I didn't realize visits required a minimum purpose. That isn't what I meant. I reached for the canvas bag containing onions and canned tomatoes. Paige pulled it away. "I've got it." "Fine, don't do that." "Do what?" "Offer to help in that tone? Then make me feel unreasonable for saying no. I offered to help with the groceries. You refused to help with the groceries. I refused to wait for them. They're here now." She laughed once without humor. "This is exhausting." I thought of all the things I had done that week without being asked. Replaced the paper in the downstairs printer, sewn a loose button on Nathan's coat, picked up Paige's dry cleaning because the shop closed before she left work, scrubbed red wine from the dining room rug after a glass tip during their Thursday dinner. Is it? I asked. Nathan came home carrying 2 cups from the coffee shop he liked. He offered one to Paige, kissed her cheek, then seemed to notice the air between us. What happened? Nothing, Paige said. I said, the groceries came. Nathan looked from her to me. Okay? Paige lifted the coffee but did not drink. Your mother wasn't here. Nathan's eyebrows rose. You went out? I'm allowed. Of course you're allowed. Apparently it caused an operational crisis. Paige put down her cup. I had a work call. She knew that. Nathan turned to me. Mom, why didn't you just wait for the delivery? There was no accusation in his voice. That made it worse. He sounded honestly confused, as if the natural order of the world had shifted half an inch, and only I knew why. Because I had somewhere to go. Where? I took the folded application from my purse. I did not show it to them. I merely felt its edges between my fingers. I looked at an apartment. Nathan's face emptied. Paige stopped moving. For the first time since the party, the silence in the house belonged to me. Nathan set both coffee cups on the counter as if his hands had forgotten what to do with them. What apartment? The vacant one in June's building. You hate that building. I don't hate the building. You said the elevator sounded like it was digesting silverware. It does. Paige closed the refrigerator. Are you serious? I looked at it. That is the full extent of what I've done. Nathan's eyes dropped to my hand. The application was still folded inside it. You took paperwork. June gave me paperwork. And you brought it home. I was afraid the wind might catch it. Mom. He said it in the voice he used when I was being deliberately difficult. He had first developed that voice at 16 during an argument over whether a denim jacket counted as adequate protection in a snowstorm. I put the application back into my purse. Nathan pulled out a chair. Can we sit down? Paige remained by the refrigerator with one hand resting on the door handle. A cold stripe of light fell across her sweater. You two sit, she said. I have groceries to put away. They'll survive 10 minutes, Nathan told her. I'm not worried about the canned beans. She picked up a bag and carried it into the pantry. Nathan looked at me. Did you go there because of last night? I went because the apartment is available. That's not what I asked. No. I went because of last night. He rubbed both hands over his face. I knew it. There was no satisfaction in being right. He looked scared, and some old part of me wanted to take the application out of my purse and tear it in half. I sat down instead. Nathan took the chair across from me. You can't decide to move every time we have an argument. I've never decided to move before. We haven't even had a real conversation about what happened. We had one at midnight. Then Paige apologized to the refrigerator. From the pantry, Paige said, I can hear you. I know. She emerged holding a can of tomatoes. What exactly do you want me to apologize for? The wording? I already apologized for that. Excluding you from a party you were never invited to? Adults have separate friends. I don't disagree. Then what are we doing? Nathan made a calming motion with his hand. Paige. No, I'm asking. Because now there's an apartment application on the table. It's in my purse. Thank you, Elaine. That changes everything. She set the tomatoes down harder than necessary. I folded my hands. Why didn't your friends know I lived here? Paige's jaw tightened. Nathan said, They probably did. No. Marcy looked at me like I had wandered in from the yard. Marcy looks at everybody like that, Paige said. Did you tell them? I don't give my colleagues a census of the house. You told them about the wine refrigerator. That came up naturally. I would pay good money to hear how. Nathan coughed into his fist. Under other circumstances, it might have been a laugh. Paige heard it too. This isn't funny. No, I said. It isn't. She crossed her arms. I didn't hide you. When the neighbors brought over my package, you shut the kitchen door. I shut the door because you were chopping celery. Is celery confidential? You were wearing your robe. It was 8:30 in the morning, and I didn't know they were coming. I wanted 5 minutes where the house looked put together. There it was, small and bright. I leaned back. I made the house look unfinished? That's not what I said. You wanted the house to look a certain way, and my being visible interfered. Paige looked at Nathan, then away. She took a breath. When you moved in, the entire rhythm of the house changed. Nathan said her name again, this time as a warning. No, I said. Let her finish. Paige did not look grateful for the permission. You cook at 4:30, she said. You fold the dish towels differently. You leave the porch light on all day if it's cloudy. People come over and ask you where things are because you always know. Sometimes I walk into my own kitchen and feel like I'm visiting you. I considered that. It would have been easy to dismiss. She had asked me to move in. She ate the meals. She used the folded towels wherever I put them. Still, I understood the feeling of entering a room and discovering somebody else had decided how it worked. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Paige gave me a tired look. How do you tell your husband's grieving mother to stop being helpful? You could start with those words. Really? You wouldn't have been hurt? I might have been. And then Nathan would have been angry with me. Nathan sat up. Don't put that on me. You put it on yourself. Every time I tried to say I needed more privacy, you told me how hard the year had been for her. He looked at me, then at the table. The conversation had shifted beneath us. I was still hurt, but now I could see a second bruise under the first. One Paige had covered with control because control was the only treatment she trusted. That explains the kitchen door, I said. It doesn't explain last night. Paige's face closed again. I wanted one evening that felt like mine. And you got it. You were there. I live here. Exactly. The word landed between us. Nathan pushed back his chair. Okay, we're stopping. No, I said. I think we finally started. He walked to the window and stared outside. He'd always hated conflict that could not be solved by identifying which person was objectively wrong. When he was young, he once spent an entire Thanksgiving determining who had dented Frank's car, only to learn a grocery cart had done it. He looked almost betrayed by the cart. I thought this arrangement was good, he said. For whom? Paige asked. He turned. For all of us. You don't have an arrangement, I told him. You have two women making separate adjustments so you don't have to notice any friction. That's not fair. Probably not. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The coffee shop cups sat untouched beside the sink. Condensation had formed around the lids. Paige picked hers up. I need to finish preparing for Monday. She took 2 steps, then stopped. For what it's worth, she said without facing me, I should have introduced you to Marcy. I knew that as soon as I didn't. Why didn't you correct it? Because correcting it would have made the moment more obvious. To whom? To you? I almost laughed. I had noticed. I know that now. She carried the coffee upstairs. Nathan remained by the window. I began taking groceries from the bags because milk had been sitting out too long. Nathan watched me put it in the refrigerator. You don't have to do that, he said. I know. He came over and reached for a bag. We unpacked in silence. He placed canned soup beside the pasta. I moved it to the pantry shelf where soup belonged, then paused with my hand on the can. Paige was right. There were systems in that kitchen that had become mine without anybody agreeing they should be. I put the soup back beside the pasta. Nathan noticed. Where does it usually go? Apparently, anywhere. He sighed. Please don't leave over a can of soup. I'll try to remain rational. I'm serious. So am I. He flattened an empty paper bag with his palm. I should have said something last night. Yes. When Paige said they didn't know you? Yes. I didn't know what to say. Hello. This is my mother would have worked. I know. I waited. He stared at the flattened bag. I didn't want to embarrass Paige in front of people she works with. They weren't inside yet. That's not the point. It's very close to the point. He gripped the paper at both ends. She was anxious about that party for weeks. Her firm is reorganizing. Marcy has influence, and Paige wanted the night to go well. So you protected her. Yes. It took courage for him to say it plainly. Not enough courage, but some. And who protected me? The bag crackled in his hands. He looked up. I didn't think you needed protecting. That answer hurt because it was not a lie. I had spent years being the strong person in Nathan's life. After Frank's heart surgery, after Nathan's divorce from his first wife, after he lost a job and didn't tell anyone for 3 weeks, I had been the calm voice, the practical one, the person who brought sandwiches and extra batteries. Nathan believed I could absorb pain because I usually did. You thought I'd forgive you, I said. His face changed. I do forgive you, I continued. That doesn't mean I can live comfortably with what you did. Those are two separate things. They have to be. He folded the paper bag once, then again. You're really considering that apartment. I'm considering what it would mean. What would it mean? Less money, less space, an elevator that may take my life. Mom, it would mean I chose it. You chose to live here. I chose what you offered. He sat down again, which was a home. This is your home. The sentence came too quickly, like something learned. I looked toward the lower hallway. From where we sat, the doorway was visible, but the stairs disappeared almost immediately into shadow. Does Paige believe that? Yes. Ask her. He looked toward the ceiling. Not now, he said. Of course not. I picked up my purse. Nathan's gaze followed it. What are you doing? Going downstairs. With the application? It's my purse. Could you not fill it out tonight? Why? Because I'd like one day to fix this. I studied him. He seemed younger when he was frightened, but he was 44 years old enough to survive a consequence, old enough to understand that time was not something other people owed him simply because he had finally begun paying attention. I looked at an apartment, I said. I haven't chosen it. Then give me a chance. To do what? He had no answer ready. That mattered. I don't know yet, he admitted. But something. I went downstairs without promising. The blue blouse hung in my closet. The walnut cabinet narrowed the doorway. My gray coat still carried the smell of coffee and cold air, and the apartment application rested inside my purse like a door I had not opened. I took it out and smoothed it on the little desk. Name. Elaine Ruth Mercer. Income. I found my reading glasses and entered the amount carefully. References. June would enjoy that. At emergency contact, I stopped. For as long as forms had asked the question, I had written Frank. After he died, I began writing Nathan. The answer had always felt automatic, almost biological. I held the pen above the blank line. Then I wrote June Bell. The letters looked wrong. June Bell was a perfectly sensible emergency contact. She lived nearby, answered her phone, and owned both a first aid kit and a tire gauge. Still, the name sat on the line like a quiet betrayal. I put down the pen. Frank would have told me I was confusing sentiment with logistics. He believed forms should be completed with cold accuracy. Once at the dentist, he listed chewing under reason for visit and argued that the question had been poorly written. I could almost hear him. Who would you want them to call, Lainey? Nathan. Who would answer without making the emergency about himself? June. I left her name. Sleep came in short pieces. The house settled around me, pipes ticking inside the walls. Near midnight, I heard Nathan and Paige speaking upstairs. Their words were indistinct, but their tones were not. Paige's voice rose, then dropped. Nathan paced when he was upset. The floor announced each turn. At 1:30, the kitchen faucet ran. At 2, a door closed. At 6:45, someone began banging a frying pan against the stove. I pulled on my robe and went upstairs. Nathan stood in the kitchen wearing sweatpants and one oven mitt. Smoke curled from a skillet. 4 pieces of bacon had fused into a single black continent. He waved the mitt at the ceiling detector. "Don't open the oven," I said. "I'm not using the oven. The detector doesn't know that." I opened the window over the sink. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of wet leaves and somebody's fireplace. Nathan turned off the burner. I was making breakfast. I suspected an agricultural fire. I got distracted. By what? The bacon. He moved the skillet to a cold burner. Coffee's fresh. A mug waited at my usual place, pale blue with a small chip near the handle. Beside it sat a plate containing 2 pieces of toast and an egg, whose edges had achieved lace. I looked toward the stairs. "Where's Paige?" "Still asleep." "Did she request burned pork at dawn?" He smiled despite himself. "This was for you." My first instinct was gratitude. My second was irritation at having that instinct so quickly. I sat down. Nathan placed the plate in front of me and took the chair across the table. There was no food for him. "You can eat," I said. "I will." "When?" "After we talk." "Then I may starve you on principle." He folded his hands. "I spoke to Paige. I heard. She feels terrible." "Quietly?" He looked at the table. "She doesn't always know how to apologize." "She knows. She doesn't like the part where she's wrong. You two have more in common than either of you will admit." I cut into the egg. The yolk had surrendered entirely. "What did you decide?" I asked. "We decided things need to change." "What things?" "Communication." I chewed slowly. Nathan sighed. "I know. That's vague. It's a decorative pillow of a word. Looks useful. Does nothing." He reached into the pocket of his sweatshirt and removed a folded sheet of notebook paper. "We made a list. You and Paige made a list about me? It's not about you, it's about the house." He unfolded it. Sunday dinner, shared calendar, privacy, guests, chores. Each item was written in Nathan's block printing. Paige had added notes in blue ink. "Paige thinks we should all sit down every Sunday," he said. "Talk about the week. If anyone's coming over, we put it on the calendar. If you want privacy downstairs, we'll respect that. If we want private time upstairs, you'll respect that." I thought I already did. "You do." Then put a check beside it. He did not enjoy that. I picked up the toast. "What does guests mean?" "No more awkwardness. If people come to the house, they'll know you live here. That sounds like a hostage negotiation. I'm trying, Mom. I see that. And we can divide chores more clearly so you don't feel taken advantage of." There it was. Feel. Not so you aren't taken advantage of, so you don't feel it. I laid down the toast. "What chores do you think I do?" He glanced at the paper. "Cooking. Some laundry. Groceries. Some laundry, most laundry. All laundry except Paige's delicate things. Okay? Who changes the bed in the guest room? You do. Who cleans the refrigerator? You. Who waits for the heating man? You did last time. The last 3 times. He found a pen near the fruit bowl and began writing. I continued. Once I started, the list seemed to release itself from my body. I received packages. I watered the plants. I took both cars for inspection because Nathan hated waiting at the garage. I returned library books, replaced burned-out bulbs, kept track of the furnace filters, washed the sheets, bought birthday cards for Nathan's uncle and Paige's mother, and reminded them to sign those cards. I had driven across town for Paige's dry cleaning 4 times. I knew which grocery store carried Nathan's preferred mustard and which pharmacy would refill Paige's prescription without making her wait. Nathan stopped writing. "Prescription," he said. "She asks me to collect it." I didn't know. That's becoming a theme. He stared at the paper. "Why do you do all this?" The question was sincere. I hated it. Because it needs doing. Some of it doesn't. Not if you don't care whether it gets done. I care. Then you can do it. He looked up. "Are you saying you won't help anymore?" "I'm saying help is something a person chooses. It isn't the rent I pay for being allowed upstairs. I never said it was. You didn't have to." The bacon fat snapped in the cooling skillet. Nathan refolded his list, but it had grown too thick to return neatly to its original shape. "What do you want?" he asked. The question should have been simple. I looked around the kitchen. The wooden spoon stood in the wrong jar because I had moved it there after arriving. The soup was still beside the pasta. Paige's blue scarf no longer lay near her keys. A brown ring from Nathan's coffee marked the counter. I want to know who I am here when I'm not useful. You're my mother. That is a relationship, not a job description. It's not nothing. No. His eyes filled, though no tears fell. Nathan had inherited Frank's habit of going still when emotion threatened to show. "Did you fill out the application?" he asked. "Yes." "Are you submitting it?" "I haven't decided." That means yes. It means I haven't decided. He stood and dumped the burned bacon into the trash. "Your breakfast is getting cold." It arrived that way. He laughed once. The laugh caught in his throat. Paige appeared at the kitchen entrance wearing a long gray cardigan. She looked from Nathan to me, then to the ruined skillet. "I smelled reconciliation," she said. "Bacon," I told her. "Ah, similar smoke profile." She crossed to the coffee maker and found the pot nearly empty. Nathan stood to make more, but she touched his arm. "I can do it." He stopped. It was a small thing, but all three of us noticed. Paige measured the coffee herself. She spilled grounds on the counter, swept them into her palm, and dropped them into the trash. "I don't want you to leave," she said to me. I waited. I know that may be hard to believe. It isn't. She looked surprised. "I believe you want me here," I said. "I'm less certain you want me present." The coffee scoop paused in her hand. "That's fair," she said. Nathan looked at her. She added, "I don't like that it's fair." For the first time since the party, I saw an opening that was not merely politeness. It would have been easy to step through it and declare the whole thing repaired. Instead, I ate the cold egg Nathan had made. The Sunday meeting lasted 43 minutes. We divided recurring chores on Nathan's list. Paige volunteered for grocery ordering and her own dry cleaning. Nathan took laundry and vehicle inspections. I agreed to cook twice a week because I liked cooking, and to contribute the same amount toward shared food that I had been contributing before. When Nathan assigned himself refrigerator cleaning, Paige said, "Have you ever cleaned a refrigerator? I've cleaned lots of refrigerators. Name one." He pointed toward theirs. "That is your mother's refrigerator." "No," I said. "It's yours." He looked at it with less confidence. We laughed, all three of us. The sound felt good, which was dangerous. Good moments can become excuses faster than bad ones become lessons. After breakfast, I took the application to my room and placed it in the top drawer of the little desk. For 2 days, the new system worked through the energy of being new. Nathan ran a load of laundry Monday night. He put one of Paige's red socks in with his white undershirts and produced a wardrobe suitable for a very shy flamingo. He blamed the sock. Paige blamed the educational system. On Tuesday, a delivery arrived while I was reading downstairs. The bell rang twice. I stayed in my chair. A few minutes later, Nathan called. "Are you home?" "Yes." "There's a package coming." It came. "Could you bring it in?" "I'm downstairs." "So you are home?" "Yes." Silence. "I'm in a meeting," he said. "I'm reading." "Mom." "Nathan." He ended the call. The package remained on the porch until Paige returned. It contained a set of linen napkins. No lives were lost. Wednesday, I cooked chicken with lemons and olives. Paige came home early and stood beside me at the stove. "Can I help? You can cut the lemons? Rounds or wedges?" "Rounds." She made wedges. I used them anyway. We ate together and talked about a woman at Paige's office who used inspirational quotes in budget meetings. Nothing important was resolved. Nathan washed the dishes because the list said it was his night. He used too much soap and flooded the counter with bubbles. It was almost pleasant enough to make me ashamed of the application upstairs. Then, Thursday morning, Paige came into the kitchen carrying a garment bag. "I have a client dinner tonight," she said. "Would you mind dropping this at the cleaners? I need the blue suit pressed by 5. She had already put her keys on top of the bag. I looked at the keys. Paige followed my gaze. "I know it's not on the list. I'm asking. Can't you take it on your way? I'm already late." The familiar machinery began turning inside me. The cleaners opened at 8. I could drop off the suit, stop at the pharmacy, and still make my dentist appointment if traffic was light. It was easy. Easier than making her rearrange her morning. Easier than saying no and feeling petty. I picked up the garment bag. Paige smiled with relief. "Thank you." Then she hurried out. I stood in the kitchen holding her suit. Nathan came down, knotting his tie. "What's that?" "An emergency." He glanced at the garment bag. "Paige forgot the cleaners?" "No." She remembered me. His hand stopped at his collar. I placed the bag across the back of a chair, set Paige's keys beside it, and went downstairs for my coat. "Are you not taking it?" Nathan called. "No, she needs it tonight. Then she should come back." He looked at the clock. "She's halfway to work." "Probably." He stared at the bag, then at me. I could see him calculating his own schedule, his morning meeting, the time to the cleaners, the inconvenience of someone else's poor planning, the exact calculation I had been spared from making for them over and over. "I can drop it off," he said finally. "You can." He took Paige's keys from the chair. I went downstairs, opened the desk drawer, and removed the apartment application. At the Waverly, June answered her door with the judgmental heron across her chest. "You decided to look again?" she asked. I held out the folded page. I decided to apply. June did not take the application immediately. "Are you sure? You were the one who put it in my hand. I also put almond cookies in your hand. That didn't mean I expected you to reorganize your life around them. I'm applying, not signing a lease. You wrote in ink. That's usually preferred." She accepted the paper and unfolded it on her kitchen table. The ceramic rooster appeared to supervise from the television. "You listed me as your emergency contact. I hope you're not planning to become unreliable." June looked over the top of her purple glasses. "Does Nathan know that I'm applying?" "Not yet." "That I'm your emergency contact?" "No." She refolded the form without reading anything else. "Do you want him to know?" "Not particularly." That wasn't my question. I sat across from her. Outside the window, a delivery truck blocked half the parking lot while a man attempted to guide it backward by waving both arms in contradictory directions. "I don't know what I want him to know," I said. "He knows I looked. He knows I filled out the application. And now you've submitted it." "Yes." "Which is different." "Yes." June tapped the folded paper against the table. "I can take this downstairs. Once they process it, you'll have to decide quickly. The other couple is still interested, so you keep saying, 'I'm trying to make sure you aren't expecting the universe to hold an apartment while your family learns to separate darks from whites.' I'm not." She studied me, then tucked the application into her purse. "The wall still leans," she said. "So does the ceramic rooster. He's had a difficult life." We went downstairs together. June slipped the application into the office mail slot because the woman who processed them would not be in until Monday. It made very little sound when it landed. That bothered me. I had expected a decision to have more weight. On the drive home, I thought about the blue suit. The dry cleaner was on my route. I could have stopped, collected it, and saved Nathan a second trip. He had dropped it off before work, but the ticket was probably in Paige's purse, and she would have to leave early to retrieve it. I drove past. That evening, Paige came through the door at 5:17 carrying the suit over one arm. She wore an expression of severe competence. "Did they get it done?" I asked. "Yes?" "Good. I left work 40 minutes early. That must have been inconvenient." It was. She waited for me to apologize. I waited for her to understand why I would not. Nathan entered behind her and placed his briefcase on the hall table. "Can we not do this tonight?" he asked. "We aren't doing anything," Paige said. "That's what it sounds like when you're doing something." She carried the suit upstairs. Nathan loosened his tie. "Did you take the application to June?" I looked at him. "Why would you ask that? You came back without it. I could have put it somewhere else." "Did you?" "No." He sat on the bottom stair. For a moment he said nothing. The suit's plastic covering rustled overhead as Paige moved around their bedroom. "What happens now?" he asked. "They review it. And then, if they approve me, I decide. You said you hadn't decided. I haven't. Applying seems like deciding. It's deciding I want the option." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I thought things were getting better." "They are." "Then why are you still doing this?" "Because better behavior for 4 days doesn't answer the larger question." "What larger question?" "Whether this is where I should live." He looked genuinely wounded. I sat beside him, leaving one step between us. "Nathan, you and Paige asked me to come because I was lonely and because you had space. We asked because we love you." "I know. Do you?" "Yes." "That has never been the problem." "Then what is?" "You thought love would make every arrangement fair without anyone having to examine it." He stared toward the front door. "Paige has been trying," he said. "So have I. By refusing to bring in packages, by not pretending I'm no longer hurt because she cut a lemon. They were wedges." I looked at him. He smiled faintly. I noticed. I bumped his shoulder with mine. It was the kind of small contact we had always used to end an argument without resolving it. This time, the argument stayed. Monday afternoon, the woman from the Waverly called while I was cleaning my bathroom. She asked 3 questions already answered on my application, then told me I qualified. The apartment would be available on the 1st of the following month. To reserve it, I needed to provide a deposit within 48 hours. I sat on the closed toilet lid holding a sponge. 48 hours. I thanked her and wrote the figure on the back of an old envelope. The deposit, first month's rent, moving costs, electric service, and whatever it would cost to make the oatmeal carpet feel less like institutional breakfast. Added together, the amount made my stomach tighten. I had savings, not enough to be careless, but enough. Frank and I had planned for old age as if it were a weather system we could prepare for with canned goods and insurance. We had not planned for me to move twice in 18 months. I opened my banking notebook and worked through the numbers. If the rent increased again the next year, I could manage it. If the car needed major work, I would have to pull from savings. If I sold the cabinet, I could cover the movers and deposit. I closed the notebook. The cabinet stood across the room, taking up too much space even there. Late sunlight struck the glass doors, illuminating the fingerprints near the hinge. I could keep it in storage for 6 months. That would cost almost as much as moving it twice. I could ask Nathan to keep it in the garage. He would say yes, and the cabinet would become a reason to return, a promise that I had not entirely left. I could sell it to somebody who saw old wood instead of Frank's hands. Every choice had a price. That was what Nathan and Paige did not understand. Staying had one too. I had simply been paying it in smaller amounts. I called June. "They approved me," I said. "Of course they did. You have excellent credit and no known history of elevator sabotage. I have 48 hours. Do you want me to celebrate or interfere?" "Neither. I can do both badly. I need the measurements for the bedroom wall." There was a pause. "I'll bring a tape measure," she said. We met at the apartment at 5. The wall measured 2 inches narrower at the top than at the bottom. "Optical illusion," June said. "It has dimensions. We measured everything. The bedroom would hold my bed and one nightstand. The living room could fit a small sofa, the round table I kept downstairs, and either a bookcase or Frank's cabinet, but not both. The cabinet also could not make the turn from the building hallway through the apartment door without being tilted at an angle that might damage its glass. June wrote numbers on the back of a chair yoga flyer. "I know a man who moves furniture," she said. "Everyone knows a man who moves furniture until furniture needs moving." He moved Mrs. Alvarez's piano. "Into this building?" "Out." There was an incident with the supper rotation. I laughed, then cried. It happened without warning. One moment I was picturing a runaway piano. The next, tears were sliding down my face. June did not hug me. She handed me a tissue and looked out the window. "I thought this was going to be my last move," I said. "Which one?" "To Nathan's." "Ah." "I thought I would stay there until I couldn't manage the stairs, and then we'd figure something out. I thought I was done deciding where home was. June folded the measuring tape into her palm. You can still stay. I know. That's what makes it a decision. I paid the deposit the next morning. Nathan and Paige were both home when I told them. Paige was cutting open a box of the linen napkins that had survived their night on the porch. Nathan stood at the counter making a sandwich. I signed the lease, I said. The knife stopped halfway through the mustard. Paige lowered the scissors. You what? The apartment is mine on the 1st. I'll move by the end of the month. Nathan set down the knife. You said you were still deciding. I decided. When? This morning. And you didn't think to talk to us first? We have talked. No, you informed us you were looking. That isn't the same as discussing whether you should leave. I wasn't asking permission. His face flushed. I didn't say permission. What would a discussion have changed? We could have fixed this. Paige pushed the open box away. You're really moving out over one sentence. No, that is exactly what you're doing. The sentence showed me something I had been working very hard not to see. So this is punishment. It's a lease for an apartment you hate. I dislike the kitchen. Paige laughed bitterly. That's an important distinction. Nathan came around the counter. You can't move at the end of the month. I can. No, Paige and I are leaving on the 28th. I looked from him to her. Paige's face changed first. She knew what he had revealed. Nathan continued. We booked the trip months ago. We'll be gone 9 days. I know about the trip. You said you'd be here. I said I had no plans. We canceled the house service because you'd be here. The window people are coming that week, and the alarm company is scheduled, and somebody has to bring in the mail, reschedule them. The deposits are paid, then hire someone. His mouth fell open slightly. Paige said, Nathan. But he was already hurt and moving too fast to hear the warning in her voice. You're abandoning us with all of this. The word struck me cleanly. I looked at my son, at the sandwich he had not finished making, at the list of tasks appearing in his mind where I should have been. You asked me to live with you, I said. Somewhere along the way, that became permission to live around me. He looked as if I had slapped him. I picked up the box of linen napkins and handed it to Paige. I'll be gone before your trip, I said. You'll have plenty of time to make other arrangements. Paige took the box, but she did not look at it. Nathan stood with both hands pressed flat against the counter. We didn't cancel a house service, Paige said carefully. We never booked one. You said we had, I told Nathan. I said we canceled it because you'd be here. No, Paige said. You said it was unnecessary. That isn't the same thing. He turned on her. Whose side are you on? The question embarrassed all three of us. Paige placed the napkins beside his unfinished sandwich. There should not be sides. There are when Mom signs a lease without even telling us. She just told us. Afterward. And what would you have said before? That we needed time. For what? To figure this out. Paige's face tightened. You had time. You used it to make a chore chart. Nathan looked at her as though she had switched languages in the middle of the conversation. I almost felt sorry for him. He had expected marriage to be the solid ground beneath him while he argued with me. Instead, Paige was standing somewhere to his left, not defending me exactly, but refusing to perform the unity he wanted. You think she should move? He asked. I think she has moved, Paige said. The paperwork just caught up. I watched her. She did not meet my eyes. Nathan picked up the knife again, not to use it, just to have something in his hand. I can't help you move that week. You know that, right? Nathan, Paige said. What? I have work. We leave Friday. I can't take 2 days off because she decided to make a point. I hired movers. His grip loosened. Of course you did. You sound offended that I can move without you. I'm offended you planned to. I didn't plan to. I responded to what happened. One party, 18 months, and a son who thinks I'm abandoning a window installer. He dropped the knife into the sink. Mustard streaked the steel. I'm going for a drive. Paige looked at the clock. You just got home. Then I'm well rested. He took his keys from the bowl by the door. I heard the car start, reverse too quickly, and stop at the end of the driveway before turning into the street. Paige and I remained in the kitchen. Her green eyes moved to the open box. "I don't even like those napkins," she said. "Why did you buy them? Marcy has them. That's a terrible reason, I'm aware." She pulled one from the box. The fabric was beige, though the catalog had apparently called it flax. Paige rubbed it between her thumb and forefinger. "When you first moved in," she said, "I kept telling people how lucky we were. You were." "I know." The answer surprised me. She folded the napkin into a square, then unfolded it. "I liked coming home and finding the lights on. I liked that somebody noticed when we were low on coffee. I liked hearing you laugh at television downstairs." She set the napkin aside. "Then people started saying things." "What people?" "People. That usually means Marcy." A reluctant smile touched her mouth. Marcy said she could never live with her husband's mother. She said she'd feel like she had failed at adulthood. "And you believed her?" "I didn't want to." "So you failed at adulthood in secret?" Her smile disappeared. "You make it sound ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It doesn't feel ridiculous when everyone at work is comparing renovations and vacations and home offices. And I'm explaining that the room behind the kitchen isn't an office because my mother-in-law lives there. You could have said your mother-in-law lives there." "I know. Did you?" "Not often. At least she told the truth." I sat at the table. "You were ashamed that you needed help." "Yes, but not ashamed enough to stop needing it." Her face flushed. "That was cruel," I said. "It was accurate. Accuracy can be cruel." "Apparently." She folded the linen napkin again, this time with sharp, exact corners. "You'll hate the Waverly," she said. "Possibly. The kitchen is tiny. You've seen it?" "Online. June sent us the listing when you first considered it." I had forgotten that. Back then, Paige had sat beside me on the sofa and pointed out everything wrong with the apartment. The narrow cabinets, the old carpet, the view of the parking lot. She had made living with them sound like the only sensible, loving choice. "You don't have to go," she said. "I signed a lease. Leases can be broken, usually with money. We could help." "No." "Why not?" "Because I don't want to owe you for leaving." She flinched. I wished I could take the sentence back without taking back its truth. Instead, I touched the flax napkin. "This will wrinkle badly," I said. "I know. You'll have to iron them damp." "I don't iron." "Then they'll be authentic." She gave a small laugh. It did not repair anything, but it let both of us breathe. The apartment office agreed to let me move boxes in on the 26th, after the carpet was cleaned, though the lease would officially begin on the 1st. I scheduled the movers for the 27th. Nathan and Paige were leaving the following morning. Nathan did not speak to me for 2 days, except to ask whether I had seen his black belt. It was hanging on the back of the laundry room door where I had put it after finding it looped through a pair of trousers. I told him. Neither of us mentioned that the old system had answered his question. I began packing. There was less in my room than I expected and more than the apartment could hold. Books multiplied when placed in boxes. Lamps acquired awkward shapes. Every drawer contained a cable belonging to an appliance I no longer owned. June brought flattened boxes from the Waverly recycling room. Most smelled faintly of oranges or detergent. "You can tell a great deal about a person by her discarded boxes," she said. "What do mine say?" "That you know someone who buys 12 cans of seltzer at a time." She helped me sort the bathroom cabinet. We found 6 unopened bars of hotel soap Frank had collected during a trip to Charleston. "He hated hotel soap," I said. "Then why did he take it?" "He believed refusing free items encouraged corporations. That man had principles." We packed the soap. The cabinet remained untouched. I measured it again, though wood had not changed dimensions since Saturday. It was 7 inches too wide for the only possible wall at the Waverly. Even if the movers maneuvered it through the door, it would block either the bedroom or half the window. June stood beside me with the tape measure. "You could cut it in half," she said. I looked at her. "I wanted you to know selling is not the worst option." I placed an advertisement online that afternoon. Handmade walnut display cabinet, glass doors, good condition, heavy. I did not mention Frank. Strangers did not need access to him. Within an hour, a man offered half the asking price and asked whether I would deliver it 70 miles. Another wanted to know if it was real wood or old wood. A woman offered to trade me a treadmill. I deleted the listing. Then I restored it. Nathan appeared in the doorway while I was photographing the lower shelf. "What are you doing?" "Selling the cabinet." He stared at me. "You can't. I don't believe there's a law. Dad made that. I was there. Then keep it. It doesn't fit. Leave it here." The answer came so fast it had clearly been waiting. "In the garage?" I asked. "For now." And then, "We'll figure it out." I stood and brushed dust from my knees. "I don't want to store it here." "Why?" "Because I would have to ask before coming to see it." "You would never have to ask." "Nathan, 2 weeks ago I had to ask if I could greet people in your living room." His face closed. "That's not the same. It feels close." He came into the room and opened one of the glass doors. It stuck at the top as it always had during wet weather. Nathan lifted slightly, the trick Frank taught him years ago, and the door swung free. "There," he said. "Still works. It always worked." "You were going to give this to me someday. I said you could have it if you wanted it." "I want it." I studied him. "Do you want the cabinet or do you want proof I'm not really leaving?" His hand remained on the door. "Can it be both?" The honesty undid me more effectively than anger. I sat on the edge of the bed. Nathan crouched beside the cabinet. "I remember him building this. You complained about the noise. I had exams. You were 19. You slept until noon. He started the saw at 7. He wanted you awake. I know that now." He ran a thumb along the lower shelf where the walnut bowed. "He measured this wrong. He measured the glasses. He forgot they'd be full." Nathan laughed quietly. For several minutes, we sat in the crowded room, not looking at each other. Then he said, "Don't sell it. I can't take it. Give it to me. Paige doesn't want it upstairs." "How do you know?" "She removed our photograph from the mantel because it fought with greenery. This cabinet could fight with a house. I'll talk to her." That phrase has not produced excellent results lately. He ignored that. "Let me keep one thing." I turned toward him. "One thing?" He looked down at his hands. "Everything in these boxes is going with you. It belongs to me." "I know. That's not what I meant." The anger I had been carrying shifted, exposing the grief underneath. Nathan was not only losing a housekeeper, he was losing the illusion that his mother's presence was permanent and therefore required no tending. I touched the cabinet door. "If you keep it, it's yours," I said. "Not storage. Not a reason for me to come back. You decide where it goes and live with Paige's opinion. I can do that." "Can you?" He looked toward the stairs. "I can learn." I deleted the advertisement. That evening, he and Paige argued about the cabinet in their bedroom. I could hear only fragments. Too large. My father. Where would it go? It matters. Then Paige said something too soft to carry through the floor. The next morning, the photograph of Frank and me was back on the mantel. It stood beside the white ceramic tree, colors fighting with everything. I found Paige in the kitchen rinsing a coffee cup. "You don't have to do that," I said. She kept her back to me. "I know. Did Nathan ask you?" "No." I waited. She set the cup in the dishwasher. "It's still my house," she said. "I decide what looks put together." The photograph remained. Nathan moved the walnut cabinet upstairs by himself that Saturday. He dragged it 6 feet before accepting that grief did not improve upper body strength. Paige took one end. I guided them around the corner while they argued over whose side was higher. They placed it against the living room wall where the ceramic tree had stood. It crowded the room. One glass door refused to close. Paige lifted it slightly, the way she had seen Nathan do. The door settled into place. "There," she said, breathless. "Still works." Nathan looked at me. I did not tell him everything would be all right, but I let him see me smile. Once the cabinet stood upstairs, my room looked larger and less like mine. A pale rectangle marked the place where it had protected the wall from sunlight. 2 deep dents remained in the carpet beneath its feet. I kept turning toward it whenever I entered, expecting to see Frank's glasses behind the doors. Instead, I saw boxes. I labeled them in thick black marker because June claimed movers treated anything marked fragile as a personal challenge. Kitchen, glass, books, heavy, bedroom, open first. Miscellaneous, which was a polite word for objects that had survived solely because nobody knew where else to put them. Nathan began finding reasons to come downstairs. He needed tape. He wanted to know whether I had seen the instruction manual for the humidifier. He stood in the doorway holding 2 different phone chargers and asked if either belonged to me. "They both do," I said. "What do they charge? If I knew, they wouldn't be in that box." He put them back. On Tuesday evening, he brought me a stack of flattened boxes from his office. He had changed from his work shirt into an old Richmond Flying Squirrels t-shirt, but he was still wearing dress shoes. "Good look," I told him. "I came straight down. From the enormous distance upstairs, I thought you might need these." "I do." He leaned them against the wall but did not leave. I packed 3 scarves into a suitcase while he watched. "Do you have enough closet space there?" he asked. "No." "Kitchen storage?" "No." "Parking?" "Some." "Some parking?" "There's a lot. Some of it will be mine." He frowned. "What about guests? They can arrive by helicopter. I'm asking practical questions. You're trying to make the apartment fail an inspection it has already passed." He sat on the beige chair. The cushion released a tired sigh beneath him. "That thing is awful. It was a gift from Paige." "I know. I helped carry it in. You may carry it out." "You're taking it?" "I need somewhere to sit." "We could get you a new chair." The lease didn't come with a ban on shopping. He rubbed his palms over his knees. "You don't have to make every answer sharp. I'm sorry. I didn't say stop." That made me laugh. He smiled, then looked around the room. "You'll be close enough to visit. 40 minutes if traffic behaves." Traffic has never behaved. "You can visit me, too." "I know." He said it like a man being given directions to a country he had not planned to enter. I opened the bottom drawer of the desk and found a blue shoebox shoved behind old tax folders. I had packed it when I left my apartment without looking inside. The cardboard lid had softened at the corners. Nathan's name was written across it in Frank's blocky hand. "What's that?" Nathan asked. "Evidence of what? I'll tell you when I know." Inside was the chipped brown mug Nathan had used in his first apartment. A faded logo from a radio station curved around one side. Beneath it lay a bundle of letters tied with kitchen string, several snapshots, and a spare key attached to a tag that read, "Westover Apartment 3B. Nathan picked up the mug. "You kept this." "Apparently, it leaks." "It didn't when I packed it. It leaked when I bought it." "Then I have no defense." He turned the mug over. A crack ran from the chip, almost to the base. Frank had hated that mug. He said anything incapable of holding coffee had failed its central moral obligation. Nathan continued using it for a year. I lifted the letters. Most were from Nathan to us during his first years away from home. He had written on legal pads, hotel stationery, the backs of printed directions. Before text messages made communication constant and shallow, he had mailed us entire weather systems of feeling. I unfolded one. "Mom and Dad, the plumbing here makes a sound like a dying goose, but the rent is only," Nathan snatched it from my hand. "Those are private. You sent them to me. I was 20. You had lovely penmanship at 20. I was disturbed." He read the first lines, then laughed under his breath. A photograph slipped from the bundle and landed face up on the carpet. The 3 of us stood outside Westover Apartments. Nathan was 23, thin and serious in a sport coat too large for him. Frank had one hand on Nathan's shoulder. I wore red sunglasses and held a potted plant we had brought as a housewarming gift. Nathan picked it up. Dad hated that place. He said the stairs violated building codes and common decency. He offered to move me home every time he visited. You kept inviting him over because he paid for dinner. Nathan ran a thumb along the photograph's white edge. You look happy. I was. Were you? Yes. He looked at me. People can be happy and worried at the same time, I said. Most of adulthood is doing both. He put the photograph back in the box. I pushed it toward him. You should take this. It's yours. It was yours first. The letters were to you, and now they're to you again. He held the shoebox but did not lift it. Are you giving everything away? No, I'm deciding what still belongs where. He looked at the boxes around us. That sounds like giving things away with better language. Better language matters. I'm beginning to notice. He carried the shoebox upstairs. Paige tried curtains on Wednesday. She appeared downstairs after dinner, holding 3 fabric samples fanned across her palm. Blue, gray, and a pale green that would have made the room look seasick. I was thinking, she said. That's always how trouble enters. We could redo this room. I looked at the samples. The curtains are 4 years old, she continued. And you've always hated that chair. I have not concealed my feelings. We could get a proper reading chair, paint the walls, maybe put French doors at the top of the stairs so it feels more private. In 3 days? Not in 3 days, if you stayed. I sat on the bed. Paige remained standing. She had prepared for resistance, but not, I think, for how sad the offer would sound once spoken. You think I'm leaving because the room is ugly? No. Then why show me fabric? Because I don't know what else to show you. I touched the gray sample. It was soft and expensive. I would have liked these, I said. Her face brightened for half a second. Before, I added. She closed her fingers around the samples. I don't know how to do this with you, she said. Do what? Be sorry without having every attempt examined for defects. I'm not asking for perfection. It feels like you are. I'm moving. I'm not grading your apology. It feels like the same thing. I moved over on the bed, and after a moment, she sat beside me. You want the move to mean I've condemned you, I said. That would let you argue the verdict. What does it mean? That I cannot unlearn what I learned. That I'm ashamed of you. That Nathan will protect your comfort before my dignity. She looked toward the ceiling. He's furious with me, she said. He's furious with everyone, mostly me. Why? Because I said the sentence, and because he agreed. He thinks if I hadn't said it, he wouldn't have failed you. That's convenient. I told him that. I looked at her. She was not smiling. I don't want him turning me into the villain so he can become the innocent bystander, she said. He heard me. He made his choice. Yes. The agreement seemed to hurt her, though it was what she had asked for. She rubbed the green fabric between 2 fingers. I did mean it, you know. I know. I mean, they didn't know you. I had never told most of them you lived here. I thought if you answered the door, I'd have to explain. Explain what? That we weren't managing everything ourselves. You weren't. I know. She said it without defense. I took the gray sample from her hand and laid it against the beige chair. It helps the chair, I said. Nothing helps the chair. That's true. She left the samples with me. I packed them in a box marked linens before realizing they were not mine. I took them upstairs and placed them outside her bedroom door. Thursday, June and I carried the first load to the Waverly. The oatmeal carpet was still damp from cleaning. The apartment smelled of shampoo and old heat. Without furniture, our footsteps echoed. June placed a box of dishes in the kitchen. Listen to that, she said, space. It sounds abandoned. It sounds available. We lined boxes beneath the living room windows. I brought the round table, 2 lamps, winter clothes, and the books I was least likely to need before the movers arrived. Each object made the apartment more real and less welcoming. Mrs. Alvarez appeared in the doorway carrying a foil-covered dish. She was a compact woman with black and silver hair and a pink sweater zipped to her chin. You're Elaine, she said. I am. June said you were coming. June has violated several privacy agreements. Mrs. Alvarez ignored that. Chicken and rice. Your stove may work, but moving makes people stupid around appliances. She handed me the dish. I haven't moved yet. You carried a lamp. It counts. June lifted the foil and inhaled. Put that down, I told her. Mrs. Alvarez nodded toward the boxes. Supper is Saturday at 6. Come if you're here. Don't if you're not. June will describe everyone afterward anyway. She left before I could thank her properly. June carried the dish into the kitchen. She likes you. She spoke to me for 40 seconds. That was restrained affection. I stood by the window. From the 4th floor, Nathan's absence felt larger than the distance between us. What if I hate it here? I asked. You'll complain. And then you'll rearrange the furniture. And then you'll either make a life or make another decision. I'm getting tired of decisions. You're the one who kept the hotel soap. We ate chicken and rice at the round table using plastic forks June had brought. The apartment had no chairs yet, so we stood. It was not home. It was also not Nathan's house. When I returned that evening, Paige was in the upstairs bedroom on the phone arranging for someone to be at the house during their trip. She spoke politely through several refusals, then sat at the kitchen table with a list of companies and prices. Expensive? I asked. Yes. I'm sorry. She looked at me, exhausted. Are you? Yes. She nodded once. Nathan came home late and walked past the packed boxes without speaking. At dinner, he moved food around his plate. Paige asked about his day. He said it had been long. I asked whether he wanted more chicken. He said he wasn't hungry. The whole house seemed to be holding its breath for the move. I woke after midnight to their voices above me. Paige said, "She has made her point. I don't understand why she still has to go through with it." Nathan answered too softly for me to hear. "She is," Paige continued. "She's making us look like people who drove her out." A chair scraped. Then Nathan's voice came clearly through the floor. "Stop calling it one sentence." Silence followed. "She's moving because of what happened," Paige said. "No. She's moving because what happened showed her who we are. Who I am, you mean. Who we are." I sat on the edge of my bed, my feet cold against the floor. Nathan continued, quieter now, but the house carried every word. "I protected you because I knew she'd forgive me. That's what I did. I chose the person who would cost me less." Paige did not answer for a long time. Finally, she asked, "And will she forgive you?" Nathan's chair creaked. "She already has," he said. "That's the part I used." I lay awake after their voices stopped. Nathan had named the thing so exactly that I could not protect myself by calling it thoughtlessness. He had known I would forgive him. He had counted on it the way he counted on hot water coming from the tap. The next morning, I found him at the kitchen table with no coffee, no breakfast, and no list. Paige stood at the counter reading something on her phone. Her suitcase lay open in the dining room, one sleeve of a red sweater hanging over the edge. Nathan looked at me. His eyes were swollen. "I took tomorrow off," he said. "You said you couldn't." I was wrong. Paige set her phone face down. "You don't need to miss work," I said. "I'm helping you move. I hired people." "I know. They're expensive because they provide the service you're describing. I'm still helping." His tone was steady, not pleading, not angry. He had apparently passed through both during the night. Paige picked up her phone again. "The house sitter can meet us at 4. "Okay," Nathan said, "and somebody needs to collect your jacket from the alterations place." "I'll do it." "When?" "Today. We also need to pack." "I know." She looked at him. "Do you?" The question carried enough weight to make the room tilt. Nathan did not rise to it. "I'm helping Mom tomorrow," he said. Paige's jaw tightened. "I heard you." She walked upstairs. Nathan stared at the empty coffee maker. "She thinks I'm choosing sides," he said. "She told you there shouldn't be sides." "She did. Maybe she's angry because there are consequences she can't organize. That sounds like Paige. It sounds like me, too. He looked at me. I'm not going to ask you to forgive her, he said. I already have. His eyes closed briefly. I heard you last night, I added. He opened them. All of it? Enough. He rubbed both palms over his face. I meant what I said. I know. I'm sorry. There was no if, no explanation, no request that I reduce the consequence to prove the apology had worked. I poured water into the coffee maker. So am I said. Moving day began with rain, not dramatic rain. No thunder, no wind. Just a fine, cold drizzle designed to soak cardboard and ruin everybody's attitude. The movers arrived 9 minutes early in a white truck. One was a wide man named Greg who wore a knee brace over his jeans. The other, Luis, had a pencil behind one ear and looked at the staircase as though it had personally offended him. Bedrooms down there? Greg asked. Yes. Furniture? Bed, desk, round table, beige chair, 2 lamps, boxes. No dresser? I sold it. Smart. It was ugly. Even smarter. Nathan came down wearing old jeans and the flying squirrels shirt. Paige followed in black leggings and a raincoat. She looked at Greg and Luis. Do you need towels to protect the floor? We bring runners, Luis said. I have old towels. We bring runners. Nathan touched her elbow. They've got it. I'm asking. They've got it. Paige pulled away from his hand. Greg followed me downstairs. He surveyed the boxes, counted them silently, then pointed to the beige chair. That going? Unfortunately, he pressed a hand into the cushion. It sighed at him. Sounds haunted. It has opinions. He and Luis carried the chair upstairs first. Paige stood at the top of the steps and watched them maneuver it around the corner. Careful of the wall, she said. Luis did not look up. Yes, ma'am. The chair cleared the corner without touching anything. See, Nathan said. I was making sure. I know. Every exchange between them had acquired a second conversation beneath it. I carried small things to my car, my purse, banking notebook, the blue shoebox of tax documents, and the framed photograph of Frank I kept beside my bed. Nathan tried to take the box from me. I have it, I said. I know, I'm carrying things. Carry the lamp, the movers have the lamp. Then enjoy your morning. He put both hands in his pockets. You said I could help. I said I wouldn't stop you. Is there a difference? Yes. He studied me, then nodded. Where are the cleaning supplies? Under the bathroom sink. I'll clean the room. That would help. The answer surprised both of us. He went downstairs. Paige stood by the open front door while the movers passed. Rain misted the porch behind her. She held a roll of paper towels against her chest. I packed some food for you, she said. You didn't have to. I know. What is it? Chicken salad, bread, coffee, milk. The basics. Thank you. You'll need groceries. I've heard they sell them near the Waverly. She gave me a tired look. Can you let me do one decent thing without making a joke? I can try. She shifted the paper towels to her other arm. I put the food in a cooler, she said. It's in my car. Are you coming with us? Her gaze moved toward Nathan, visible at the bottom of the stairs with a bottle of bathroom cleaner. No. I still have errands for the trip. Of course. That wasn't an excuse. I didn't say it was. You didn't have to. We stood in the doorway where she had welcomed Marcy 2 weeks earlier. The space seemed smaller with boxes passing through it. I don't know what you want from me today, Paige said. Nothing. That's worse. It isn't meant to be. Everything you say sounds final. I'm moving out, Paige. Some things are ending. Her face tightened. Not everything, I added. She looked at me then. I'm not moving to another country. I'm moving to a bad kitchen. You keep saying that like it's funny. It has to become funny. I'm going to cook there. Greg passed us carrying the round table on his back. Where do you want this in the truck? Anywhere it won't become oval, I said. Paige laughed before she could stop herself. The sound gave us both permission to breathe. She brought the cooler from her car and placed it beside my purse. On top was the pale blue mug with the chipped handle, wrapped in a dish towel. "I thought this was yours," she said. "It is. I almost packed one of the linen napkins around it. That would have improved both objects." Her mouth curved. Nathan came upstairs carrying the empty bathroom trash can. "Room's done." "Already?" I asked. "It wasn't dirty. I've been cleaning it." I noticed. The movers loaded the last box just before noon. All that remained downstairs was the bed frame they had dismantled, dust outlines on the walls, and 3 wire hangers in the closet. I stood in the doorway. Without my belongings, the lower room looked exactly like what Paige had always called it. Extra space. Nathan came beside me. "You can still change your mind," he said. "No, we could cancel the lease. I'd cover whatever it costs." "No, Paige and I talked. We can do better. You can. You should. With you here." I looked at the pale rectangle where Frank's cabinet had stood. "The move is happening." His shoulders dropped. "I knew you'd say that. Then why ask? Because I needed to know I tried." "That's about you." "Yes." The bluntness stopped me. He leaned against the doorframe. "I don't want the last thing you remember about living here to be that party. It won't be. What will it be?" I looked into the empty room. "You trying to clean a bathroom in 7 minutes." He smiled, but tears filled his eyes. I touched his cheek. He caught my hand and held it there for 1 second, then let it go. At the Waverly, the elevator refused to move until Luis kicked the lower corner of the door. "Trustworthy," I told June. "It responds to confidence." Mrs. Alvarez stationed herself in the hallway with a bag of ice and a box of adhesive bandages, prepared for either heat stroke or blood loss. Greg accepted a bottle of water from her. Luis accepted too. Nathan carried boxes from the elevator while I directed traffic, books by the window. Which window? There are 2. That's why I asked. The left. Left from here or left from outside? Why would I be directing you from outside? June walked past carrying a lamp. "You two should have a radio show." The beige chair went beside the radiator. The bed fit, though the bedroom door bumped the frame when opened fully. The round table stood near the kitchen with enough room for 3 chairs if everyone agreed not to breathe deeply. By 3, the truck was empty. Greg handed me the final receipt. The cost was higher than the estimate because the elevator had delayed them, and the walk from the loading area was farther than expected. I signed while trying not to calculate what the extra amount would have covered. Nathan saw the figure upside down. "I'll pay half." "No." "Mom?" "No. This move is partly my fault, more than partly." "Then let me pay. That would make the consequence yours for one afternoon. It's mine every month." His face fell. I regretted the sharpness, but not the answer. The movers left. June and Mrs. Alvarez disappeared after promising to return for supper. Suddenly, Nathan and I were alone among boxes. He opened the cooler Paige had packed. Chicken salad, a loaf of bread, milk, coffee, butter, and a glass jar containing the mushroom filling from the party. There was a note taped to the lid. "For the pastry you didn't get to eat." Nathan read it over my shoulder. "She tried," he said. "Yes. Does it count?" "Yes." "How much?" "I don't know yet." He placed the jar in the refrigerator. We unpacked the coffee maker first. Nathan found the filters in a box marked bathroom because June had packed them and refused to accept accusations. He made coffee while I searched for mugs. The pale blue one had survived. Nathan poured mine, then stood in the narrow kitchen holding a paper cup June had left. "You want to sit?" I asked. "There's 1 chair. We can take turns." He leaned against the counter instead. Tomorrow morning, he and Paige would leave for 9 days. The house sitter would meet the window installers, collect their mail, and test the alarm. Tasks I had once mistaken for proof that I belonged. "When you get back," I said, "come for coffee. I don't need an invitation." "Yes, you do." He absorbed that. "Okay," he said, "invite me." I just did. His smile was small and unsteady. He left at 5 to finish packing for the trip. I watched from the 4th-floor window as he crossed the parking lot, shoulders hunched against the rain. He looked up once but did not know which window was mine. I raised my hand anyway. That night, after June went home and the hallway quieted, I lay in my bed listening to the Waverly. A television murmured through one wall. Pipes knocked somewhere above me. The elevator groaned, paused, then completed its journey with a metallic sigh. Nothing sounded familiar. I turned toward the empty side of the bed. On the floor beside me stood the framed photograph of Frank, still wrapped in a bath towel because I had not found the box with the nails. "I did it," I told him. The room did not feel triumphant. It felt expensive, lonely, and mine. Morning arrived through 2 bare windows and landed directly on my face. I had forgotten curtains. At Nathan's house, the downstairs room faced north. Sunlight entered politely around noon, stayed for 20 minutes, and left before becoming a nuisance. At the Waverly, 6:30 in the morning arrived like a search warrant. I rolled out of bed and found the box marked linens. It contained towels, 2 tablecloths, 1 winter blanket, and none of the curtains I thought I had packed. I hung a tablecloth over the bedroom window using packing tape. The tape failed while I was brushing my teeth. By 7, the tablecloth lay on the floor, and a man in the parking lot had seen more of my robe than either of us wanted. I made coffee. The kitchen did not improve with daylight. I opened one cabinet and hit myself in the forehead with its door because there was nowhere to step back. The refrigerator hummed as though it was considering a complaint. Paige's cooler sat on the counter, empty except for the mushroom filling. I spread some on a slice of bread and ate it cold. My phone showed a message from Nathan sent at 5:52 at airport. "You okay?" I replied. "I have been awake for almost 12 minutes. No medical emergencies." He answered immediately. "Curtains?" I looked toward the tablecloth, working on it. 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. "Call if you need anything." I almost wrote, "From the airport?" Instead, I sent, "Have a good trip." He responded with a heart. Nathan did not usually send hearts. His texts favored periods, even after single words. "Thanks. Fine. Okay." The heart looked frightened and out of place. I left it unanswered. Unpacking took 3 days and then continued in smaller forms for weeks. The apartment resisted every arrangement. If I put the round table near the kitchen, it blocked a cabinet. If I moved it toward the window, one chair sat directly over the heat vent. The beige chair fit beside the radiator but grew hot enough to slow cook anyone who sat there. I bought curtains from a discount store and returned them because the fabric turned green in sunlight. The second pair was too short. The third pair cost more than I intended to spend, so I stood in the aisle for 10 minutes calculating rent, electricity, and the price of dignity measured in inches of cotton. I bought them. Saturday evening, June knocked at 5:58. "Are you ready?" she asked. "No." "Excellent. Mrs. Alvarez hates enthusiasm." The supper rotation occupied a room on the first floor that had once been called the community lounge and still contained a plaque saying so. Someone had decorated it with artificial ivy and 4 framed prints of European streets nobody in the building had visited. 12 people sat around 2 folding tables. Every person appeared to have brought enough food for 20. Mrs. Alvarez pointed to an empty chair. "Sit there. That way Martin can't tell you about his gallbladder before dessert." A lean man in a green sweater looked offended. It was an unusual gallbladder. "They are all unusual when they belong to men," Mrs. Alvarez said. I sat. June introduced me to Martin, his wife Dolores, a retired electrician named Walter, 2 sisters who lived on separate floors because they could not agree on thermostat settings, and a woman named Audrey who wore large red earrings and asked whether I played cards. "Poorly," I said. "Good. We need someone confident." Nobody asked why I had moved. They asked whether the elevator had trapped me yet, whether my kitchen faucet whistled, and whether I preferred bridge or gin. Their curiosity had boundaries. I could feel the questions behind their ordinary welcome, but they allowed me to choose the door. After dinner, Mrs. Alvarez handed me a plastic container of leftovers. "I can't take this." "You can." "I brought nothing. You're new." New people bring themselves. Martin leaned over. "Next week, bring antacids." Mrs. Alvarez slapped his sleeve. I walked upstairs carrying chicken, rice, roasted carrots, and a square of lemon cake. My apartment was dark when I opened the door. For 1 second, I expected a light to be on because somebody had gotten home before me. Then I remembered nobody would. The silence no longer felt like the silence at Nathan's house. There, quiet had become a place I was sent. Here, it waited for me without judgment. That did not make it pleasant. I ate the lemon cake standing over the sink and cried hard enough to make my nose run. Both things could be true. Nathan called from Asheville the following afternoon. "Are you settling in? I have curtains. Congratulations. They cost more than your first car. My first car cost $400. They did not cost quite that much. Did June help you hang them? I own a screwdriver." That is not an answer. I told him about the supper. He told me the mountain view from their hotel was obstructed by a pine tree. Neither mentioned the party or the move. Before hanging up, he said, "Paige wants to know if you found the note in the cooler." I did. She was worried it came loose. It stayed. Good. A pause opened. "Put her on," I said. Another pause. "She's in the shower, of course." He was lying. Nathan had never lied convincingly. His voice became overly casual, as if truth were a dog he hoped would not notice him passing. "Tell her thank you," I said. "I will." Paige did not call. When they returned 9 days later, Nathan came to the Waverly alone. He arrived on Sunday carrying coffee, a grocery bag, and the blue shoe box containing his letters. "I thought you gave this to me," he said. "I did. I'm giving back the letters. They're yours. They were written to you. We've had this discussion." He placed the box on the round table. I kept the mug, a fair division of the estate. He looked around. By then, I had hung Frank's photograph beside the bedroom door. Books filled the small bookcase. The curtains reached the floor. Mrs. Alvarez had given me a plant that appeared determined to survive neglect. Nathan touched the back of the beige chair. "You kept it. I'm planning revenge." He sat and immediately shifted away from the radiator. "What's in the bag?" I asked. "Coffee filters, that mustard you like, and light bulbs." "I have light bulbs. Now you have more. You drove 40 minutes to bring me household supplies, and the letters. You're behaving like a hardware store with feelings." He smiled, but his eyes moved across the room again, measuring what was missing. "The cabinet looks good upstairs," he said. "Paige hasn't buried it in the yard? She put glasses in it." "Which glasses?" "Ours." The answer pleased me more than I wanted him to see. "She moved the white tree to the dining room," he added. "Casualty of war." We drank coffee. Conversation came in careful pieces. His flight had been delayed. The house sitter had forgotten to put out the recycling. One of the window installers had left muddy footprints. Nathan said each inconvenience plainly, without suggesting I could have prevented it. When he rose to leave, he stood near the door too long. "You can stay," I said. "I don't want to overdo it. Coffee isn't a medical treatment. I'll come next Sunday." It sounded more like a question than a promise. "All right." He came the next Sunday and the one after that. The first time, he brought a drill and installed a shelf above the kitchen counter. He measured twice, made 3 holes, and blamed the wall. The second time, he arrived empty-handed. "That's progress," I said. "I almost bought batteries." "For what?" I didn't know. That's why I stopped. We walked around the building after coffee. He met Mrs. Alvarez near the elevator and thanked her for feeding me. "I feed everyone," she said. "Your mother is not a special case." Nathan looked startled. "She means that kindly," I told him. "I do not," Mrs. Alvarez said, and entered the elevator. Nathan watched the doors close. "I like her. She'll be disappointed." By the 4th Sunday, he stopped asking whether I had reconsidered. He told me he and Paige had divided the household work again, not because of a list this time, but because the list had ended up beneath a stack of mail and the refrigerator smelled suspicious. "I found celery in the bottom drawer," he said. "That's where celery lives. It was liquid. That's where celery goes to die." He laughed, then grew quiet. "I didn't realize how often you cleaned it." "No, I'm starting to." Paige's name hovered between us. "How is she?" I asked. "Fine. That word is doing too much. She doesn't know how to come here. There are roads. You know what I mean? Yes. She thinks you don't want to see her. Did I say that? No. Then she thinks something else. Nathan looked down at his coffee. She thinks she'll walk through that door and everything she says will sound wrong. It probably will. That isn't encouraging. She doesn't need encouragement from you. She needs courage of her own. He nodded. I did not ask him to bring her. I would not let him carry her apology the way I had carried her dry cleaning. 6 weeks after I moved, I realized I had left my blue blouse at Nathan's house. It was not in the closet, the linen box, or either suitcase. The last time I remembered wearing it was the party. I could have lived without it. The blouse was not valuable. One cuff had begun to fray, and the color no longer made me look as dangerous as Nathan claimed. I drove to the house anyway. Paige's car was in the driveway. Nathan was at work. I used my key, then stood in the entry, feeling like a thief. The living room looked almost the same. Frank's cabinet crowded the wall. Their wine glasses stood behind its doors. Our photograph remained on the mantel beside a small brass bowl. Paige came out of the kitchen carrying a laundry basket. She stopped. I knocked, I said, though I had not. No, you didn't. I considered it. She set down the basket. What are you doing here? I left a blouse. The blue one? Yes. It's in the downstairs closet. Of course she knew. We went down together. The beige chair's absence left the sitting area oddly bare. Paige had not redecorated. The walls remained the same color. My blue blouse hung alone in the closet. I took it from the hanger. I thought about mailing it, she said. That would have been dramatic. I thought about bringing it. But... She crossed her arms. I didn't know if I was welcome. The word moved through the empty room. You are, I said. To apologize. To visit. What if I'm not ready to apologize correctly? There is no correctly. You made a distinction between forgiveness and living with what somebody did. Yes. I've been thinking about that. I waited. She looked toward the pale marks where the cabinet had stood. I'm not ready, she said. For what? To have you tell me it's all right. I won't. Her head turned sharply. It isn't all right, I said. It happened. You meant it. Nathan agreed. I moved. If you come to my apartment, none of that disappears. Then what changes? We stop pretending the only possible outcomes are punishment or absolution. She absorbed that. Upstairs, the washing machine began its spin cycle. It thumped unevenly. Your load is unbalanced, I said. I know. You should move the towels around. I know. Neither of us moved. June decided I needed a housewarming. You've been here nearly 2 months, she said. At this point, it's a house warmed. I already know everyone you would invite. That's not the purpose. The purpose is food in your apartment and people admiring curtains you nearly bankrupted yourself to purchase. Mrs. Alvarez volunteered to bring ziti. Audrey promised cards. Walter said he would bring folding chairs and not discuss wiring unless asked. I agreed to a Saturday gathering because refusing would have required more energy. I sent Nathan a message. Small housewarming Saturday at 6. You and Paige are invited. He replied, we'll be there. A minute later, another message arrived. Both of us? I looked at the question. Both of you. On Saturday afternoon, I arranged cheese on a plate and moved the round table twice. The apartment would be crowded. The kitchen was already hot. Frank's photograph hung straight, the plant was still alive, and the curtains turned the sunlight a warm shade of gold. At 4:45, someone knocked. I opened the door. Paige stood in the hallway alone, holding nothing. I'm early, she said. You are. Her eyes moved past me into the apartment. May I come in? She asked. You may. I stepped aside. Paige entered slowly, as though the apartment might react to her weight. She wore dark jeans, low boots, and a blue sweater I had not seen before. Without her work clothes or a carefully chosen dress, she looked younger and less certain of what her hands were supposed to do. She stopped beside the round table. This is nice. You don't have to lie immediately. I'm not lying. The kitchen is terrible. The kitchen is terrible, she agreed. But this is nice. Her gaze moved over the bookcase, the plant, the framed photograph of Frank, and the curtains. Those are the third pair, I said. What happened to the first two? One was green in disguise. The other dressed only the top half of the windows. Paige touched the hem of the curtains. These are good. They should be. They cost roughly 1 kidney. She smiled faintly. I closed the door. You said 6, I told her. I know. Is Nathan parking? He's coming later. I asked him to. Why? Because I wanted to speak to you without him translating. Nathan doesn't translate. He repeats the same sentence with more concern. I know. She stood in the middle of the living room. The beige chair occupied the only obvious place to sit, but she distrusted it on sight. I can move that away from the radiator, I said. It looks dangerous. It was your gift. I know. I'm sorry about that, too. I pulled one of the chairs from the table. Paige sat. I took the beige chair, which was warm but not yet lethal. For several seconds, we listened to footsteps cross the apartment above mine. I don't have a speech, she said. Good. I had one in the car. It sounded very reasonable. That can be a warning sign. It was mostly about how I grew up. I waited. My mother's relatives were always staying with us, she continued. A cousin between jobs. An aunt after a breakup. Somebody's friend who needed 2 weeks and stayed 6 months. My mother couldn't say no to anyone, then she'd complain that nobody helped. The house was crowded, and we never knew who was going to be in the kitchen in the morning. I had met Paige's mother many times. Celeste was an elegant woman who carried mints in a silver case and acted as if disorder were a rumor spread by other families. I would not have guessed that, I said. Most people don't. My mother worked very hard to make sure they wouldn't. So did you? Yes. Paige looked toward the narrow kitchen. When you moved in, I told myself it was completely different. You weren't some relative we barely knew. You were Nathan's mother. You had your own space. We wanted you there. All true. But I still felt it sometimes. Like the house wasn't mine. Like I had failed to build a life that could stand by itself. You could have told me. I should have. Why didn't you? Because I also loved having you there. Her voice cracked on the last word. She pressed her lips together and waited until she trusted them again. I loved the dinners. I loved that you left the hall light on when we were late. I loved having someone downstairs when Nathan traveled. I loved that you knew when I was having a terrible day and would talk about anything except the terrible day. She wiped beneath one eye with her thumb. I wanted all of that. I just didn't want anyone to know I wanted it. I thought of the closed kitchen door, the missing photograph, the relief on her face when I went downstairs. You made me carry your shame, I said. Yes. There was no defense attached, and you let people believe my work was yours. Yes. You let me leave that party alone. Her face folded. Yes. The word came out almost soundless. I had imagined that admission many times. In some versions, it released me. In others, I delivered a sentence so exact that Paige finally understood the shape of the injury. Instead, we sat in a small apartment with a hot chair and cheese sweating on a plate. I'm sorry, she said. Not if it came out wrong. Not if you were hurt. I'm sorry I made you invisible when it suited me. I'm sorry I used what you gave us and then acted embarrassed by what it proved. I looked at Frank's photograph. Thank you, I said. Paige blinked. That's all? What else do you want? I don't know. You apologized. I heard you. Do you forgive me? The question was honest, but it still asked me to take the next step for her. I told you I'm not going to declare it all right. I know. I want a relationship with you. Her shoulders loosened slightly. But not the old one, I added. They tightened again. The old one depended on me swallowing things, so the house stayed peaceful. I can't go back to that. I'm not asking you to move back. You came with curtain samples. That was before I understood how insulting curtain samples could be. They were nice curtains. They really were. We both laughed, softly and against our will. A knock sounded down the hall, followed by June's voice arguing with the elevator. Paige looked at the clock. People are coming early? June considers announce times a personal challenge. She stood. Can I help? You're already here. I mean with the gathering. I could put out the food. Answer the door. She hesitated. Welcome the guests if you want. There it was. Not exactly the same question. Nothing important ever repeats itself exactly. But the shape of it stood between us. Unmistakable. They don't know you, I said. Paige went still. I let the silence remain long enough for both of us to feel what those words could do. Then I stood. But they can, I said, if you let them. Her eyes filled again. This time she did not wipe them quickly. I'd like that, she said. June knocked 3 times. If you don't open this door, she called, Mrs. Alvarez will use her shoulder. Paige went to answer it. She opened the door wide. June stood there carrying a bowl covered with plastic wrap. Mrs. Alvarez waited behind her with the ziti, and Walter held 2 folding chairs under one arm. Hello, Paige said. I'm Paige, Elaine's daughter-in-law. Come in. June's gaze moved from Paige to me. She raised one eyebrow, but in an act of extraordinary discipline, said nothing. Mrs. Alvarez handed Paige the ziti. Hot, she warned. Paige nearly dropped it. Walter caught the bottom of the pan with one hand. She means it. They came in talking over one another. Within 20 minutes, the apartment contained 12 people, 14 chairs, 3 casseroles, 2 card tables, and no visible floor. Audrey's red earrings brushed her shoulders when she laughed. Martin told Nathan about his gallbladder despite explicit instructions. Dolores apologized for him without interrupting her dessert. Nathan had arrived at 6 carrying flowers and looking prepared for tension. He found Paige in the kitchen beside Mrs. Alvarez, arranging bread in a basket. He stopped near the door. Paige saw him and said, "Put the flowers in water." No private signal passed between them. No dramatic relief. Nathan found a jar under the sink and did as he was told. I introduced them when the moment arose. This is my son, Nathan, and his wife, Paige. The words were ordinary. Paige's face said they were not. Nathan met June, who told him she had been my emergency contact for weeks. You're what? He asked. June looked at me. Was that classified? Only inconvenient. Nathan's smile faltered. I expected him to ask when I had changed it. Instead, he nodded. I'm glad it's you, he told June. She studied him through her purple glasses. That was the correct answer. I'm learning. Slowly? Painfully. Those are often the durable lessons. Later, Nathan found the blue shoebox on my bookcase. You kept the letters, he said. You returned them. I wasn't sure you would. Why? He lifted the lid and looked at the bundle tied with kitchen string. I don't know. He did know. He feared I was editing him out of my life the way Paige had edited me from hers. I touched the chipped corner of the box. You're still my son. His eyes rose to mine. That isn't a reward, I said, and it isn't a guarantee that everything stays the same. I know, but it also isn't something one bad night erases. His mouth trembled. Even a very bad night? He asked. Don't negotiate. He laughed and hugged me. The apartment was too crowded for a private embrace. Walter had to shift his chair to let Nathan put his arms around me. Nobody applauded. Audrey continued explaining the rules of gin to Paige. Mrs. Alvarez scraped the corner of the ziti pan. June looked away with suspicious concentration. It was better that way. Nathan let go. You look good here, he said. I look crowded. That too. At 8:30, the folding chairs began disappearing back into the hallway. Mrs. Alvarez left me 3 servings of ziti and strict reheating instructions. Martin attempted to leave with the wrong coat. Audrey extracted a promise from Paige to join a card game, which Paige made before understanding what she had agreed to. June remained last. She hugged me, then whispered, Do you need me to stay? No. Are you sure? Yes. She nodded toward Paige, who was wrapping leftover cheese in my kitchen. I brought a tarp. Go home. June left smiling. Nathan collected cups from the windowsill. Paige washed the serving spoons. You don't have to clean, I said. Paige turned off the water. Would you like us not to? The question mattered. You can help, I said, but leave the glasses. I'll do them tomorrow. She dried her hands. Nathan carried a stack of plates into the kitchen, looked at the limited counter space, and asked, Where do these go? Cabinet above the stove. He opened it and nearly hit himself in the forehead. I laughed so hard I had to hold the table. This kitchen is violent, he said. I warned you. Paige leaned against the sink, laughing too. For a few seconds, we sounded like the household we had once believed we were. But this was not that household. They would leave. I would close the door. The difference kept the laughter honest. Before going, Paige paused beside Frank's photograph. I never should have taken the other one off the mantel, she said. No, I put it back because I felt guilty. I know, it stayed because I like it there. I looked at her. That matters more, I said. Nathan helped her into her coat. Their movements around each other were careful but familiar. Whatever his choice on moving day had cost them, they were working through it without requiring me to solve it. At the door, Paige hugged me. She asked with her body before she touched me, leaning just far enough to give me time to refuse. I hugged her back. She did not ask whether that meant she was forgiven. After they left, the apartment was a wreck. Crumbs covered the carpet. A red wine ring marked the round table. Someone had placed a used fork in the plant. I stood in the middle of it and felt tired, full and unexpectedly peaceful. The next morning, Nathan called. Was last night too much? It was exactly too much. Paige hasn't stopped talking about Mrs. Alvarez. That can happen. She wants to invite you to dinner next weekend. Paige does? We both do. Just some family and a couple of friends. I ran a cloth over the wine ring. Which friends? People you've met. The answer was too careful. What are you asking me, Nathan? He hesitated. We thought you might come early, he said. Help us get things ready. Maybe greet people when they arrive. My hand stopped over the table. The request was innocent enough to contain every old danger. When do you need an answer? I asked. Not today. Good. Mom? Yes? I'm not asking you to work. I know what you think you're asking. What does that mean? It means I'll think about dinner. I ended the call and stood beside the round table, looking at the marks left by people who knew me now. Then I picked up the used fork from the plant. The fork had 4 long tines and a green handle. It did not belong to me. I washed it, dried it, and placed it beside my purse so I could ask around at the next supper. Then I made coffee and considered Nathan's invitation. Coming early had once meant love to me. Family arrived early. Family sliced vegetables, found extra chairs, tasted the sauce, and answered the door while the host changed clothes. Guests came at the stated time carrying wine. What Nathan had asked was not unreasonable. That was why the answer was difficult. If I refused, I risked turning every favor into evidence. If I agreed, I risked stepping back into a role I had moved 40 minutes away to escape. By noon, I understood the problem. Nathan had asked me to come early because he wanted to show I belonged. He had reached for the only language of belonging our family had practiced: usefulness. I called him. Have you thought about dinner? He asked. I'll come. He exhaled. Good. At 7. There was a pause. Everyone else is coming at 7. So am I. Okay, I won't bring food. Okay, I won't help prepare. A longer pause. Mom, I said, I wasn't asking you to work. I know. I'm telling you what accepting the invitation looks like. He was quiet. I will come to your house, I said. I will sit down as your mother. If something burns, I may open a window, but I make no promises. He laughed softly. At 7, he said. At 7, and you'll bring nothing. Correct. That may be the part I have trouble explaining to Paige. She'll recover. After we hung up, I felt mean. Then I felt relieved. Then I felt guilty for the relief. Boundaries had been described to me as clean lines. Mine felt more like a row of chairs I had to move around every time I crossed the room. Paige called that evening. "Nathan says you're coming at 7. He understood. He also says you've threatened to let the house burn. I said I might open a window. That's generous." Her voice sounded amused rather than offended. "What are you making?" I asked. "I'm not telling you. Why? You'll hear an ingredient and offer advice. I can restrain myself. You told me my linen napkins would wrinkle. They do wrinkle. I ironed them damp. And they look incredible." I smiled into the phone. "Dinner at 7, she said. No apron required. Saturday arrived cold and bright. At 5, I caught myself standing in front of the refrigerator, wondering whether Nathan had bought enough butter. At 5:30, I considered leaving early in case Paige needed help. At 6, I changed my blouse because the first one looked too much like something I would wear while cooking. I chose the blue blouse. The cuff had frayed another 1/4 inch. I trimmed one loose thread, added earrings, and sat in the beige chair until 6:20. The radiator warmed my left leg. I left at 6:15 because traffic could be unpredictable. Traffic was perfect. At 6:43, I parked halfway down Nathan Street and sat in my car. Through the front windows, I saw movement. Nathan crossed the living room carrying a stack of plates. Paige appeared behind him, pointed toward the dining room, then vanished. My body recognized the choreography. It wanted to go inside. I checked the clock. 6:46. A car pulled into the driveway. Nathan's Uncle Rob emerged carrying 2 bottles of wine. His wife, Susan, balanced a bakery box on one palm. They went to the door and rang the bell. Nathan answered. I remained in my car. At 6:52, another couple arrived. I recognized them as Tessa and Calvin, neighbors I had met briefly at Christmas. Paige opened the door. She hugged Tessa and took a covered dish from Calvin. I remained in my car. At 6:58, my phone buzzed. "Nathan, you here?" I replied, almost. Then I waited until 7. I did not use my key. I had brought it, but I rang the bell. Nathan opened the door. He wore a white shirt with one sleeve damp to the elbow. A streak of flour crossed his chest. Warm air and the smell of roasted garlic spilled onto the porch. "You're right on time," he said. "I have a watch." He smiled. "Come in, Mom, not come help. Not thank God you're here, just come in." Paige appeared from the dining room wearing the linen apron I had left behind. "The sauce is too thin," she said. I raised one hand. "I know nothing. I'm not asking." "Good. I'm informing you so that if dinner is terrible, you understand the cause. I brought a strong appetite and no standards." She kissed my cheek. The living room had changed. Frank's cabinet stood against the wall, no longer looking temporary. Paige had arranged their wine glasses on the top shelf and books on the lower one. Our photograph remained on the mantel. Beside it stood a newer picture from their mountain trip. The white ceramic tree was gone. "Where's the tree?" I asked. "Dining room cabinet," Paige said. "It lost the war. We negotiated a settlement. Uncle Rob came over and hugged me. He had grown a white beard since I last saw him and seemed proud of it. 'You're farther away now,' he complained, 'by 11 miles. Those are old man miles. You are not required to walk.'" Susan kissed my cheek and asked about the Waverly. She knew a woman on the 3rd floor who cheated at bridge. I suspected Audrey. I sat in the living room with them while Nathan returned to the kitchen. That was all. I sat. The experience was so unfamiliar that I almost laughed. From the kitchen, a pan clattered. Rob turned his head. "Should somebody check?" "No," I said. Paige called. "Everything's fine." Smoke drifted into the hallway. I opened my mouth. Nathan appeared carrying the pan at arm's length. "Window." I offered no guarantees. I reminded him. He laughed and opened it himself. The doorbell rang while he was struggling with the latch. For one second, his eyes found mine. The old request passed between us. Then he wiped his hand on a towel and went to the door. Marcy stood on the porch wearing the red coat from the open house. Beside her was her husband with another paper bag of wine. I had not expected her. Nathan had told the truth. I had met everyone. Marcy stepped inside, saw me, and hesitated. "Oh," she said. "Hello again." "Hello, Marcy." Paige came from the kitchen. "Marcy, you remember Elaine, Nathan's mother?" "Yes, of course. She lived with us until recently," Paige continued. "We were lucky to have her. We didn't act like it often enough." The statement did not stop the room. Nobody looked toward me for a reaction. Rob was still discussing his beard. Tessa had opened the bakery box. Marcy simply looked at Paige, then at me. "I don't think I understood that night," she said. "No," I replied. "You didn't. It was enough." Paige took Marcy's coat and hung it in the study. Dinner was 20 minutes late. The sauce was thin. Nathan's roasted vegetables were undercooked in the center and black at the edges. Paige had forgotten to warm the bread until everyone was seated. I did not fix anything. I ate what was served and enjoyed it. Halfway through dinner, Marcy complimented the mushrooms in the sauce. "Elaine taught me how to cook them," Paige said. "I told you not to crowd the pan. You said you knew nothing tonight." That was tonight. People laughed. Paige did not claim the recipe. She also did not perform an apology for the table. She told the truth and passed the potatoes. After dinner, I carried my plate to the kitchen. Nathan took it from me. "You're a guest. Guests can clear plates. Not this one. Don't become strange about it. I'm trying to make a point. You already invited me to dinner." He lowered his voice. "Did I do it right? Ask me in 6 months. That's not helpful. It isn't supposed to be a performance review." He leaned against the counter. "I keep thinking if I say the right thing, we can get to the part where this is over. This will be over." "When?" "When we stop measuring." He looked toward the dining room where Paige was listening to Susan explain the bridge cheater. "I miss you in the house," he said. "I miss being here sometimes." His face lifted. "I don't miss living here," I added. The hope did not vanish, but it changed shape. "I understand," he said. "Do you?" "I'm trying. That's enough for tonight." He kissed my forehead and returned to the table. I left at 10 with a slice of cake wrapped in foil. Paige did not send chicken salad, groceries, or tasks home with me. At the door, she hugged me and said, "Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me." Nathan held my coat. "You still have a key," he said as I slipped one arm into the sleeve. "I do. You can keep it." I looked at the small brass bowl on the entry table. My key had once lived there with theirs. After I moved, I had carried it in the inner pocket of my purse, unsure whether possessing it meant I belonged or had failed to leave. I took it out. Nathan watched my hand. "I want you to keep it," he said. "For emergencies, for family." I turned the key between my fingers. "Family can knock." His face tightened. "That isn't rejection," I said. "It's a door." Paige came beside him. "She's right," she said. Nathan glanced at her. "People who live here have keys," she continued. "People we welcome don't need them." I placed the key in his palm. "Call me when you get home," he said. "You'll be asleep. Call anyway." I drove back to the Waverly beneath a sky too cloudy for stars. The roads were nearly empty. At a red light, I looked at the foil-wrapped cake on the passenger seat and thought of the night I had driven to the diner with no destination, Paige's blue scarf beside me. The pain had not disappeared. It had become part of the route. My apartment was dark when I entered, but no longer strange. I turned on the lamp near the beige chair, put the cake in the refrigerator, and hung the blue blouse in my closet. Frank's photograph caught the light from the hall. My phone rang before I could call Nathan. It was Paige. "Did you get home?" she asked. "I did. Nathan told me to call because he's loading the dishwasher." "Properly?" "No. I'm choosing my battles." In the background, I heard him say, "I can hear you." I laughed. Paige said, "We'd like to do dinner again. I'd like that. You'll come at 7. Yes. You won't bring anything. Probably not. Elaine. I won't bring anything. Good." She paused. "Thank you for letting me welcome you tonight," she said. I looked around my small living room, the crowded bookcase, the expensive curtains, the round table marked by wine, the chair that complained when I sat. "You're welcome," I said. After we hung up, I opened the curtains a few inches. Across the parking lot, lights glowed in the windows of people whose lives I was slowly learning. Somewhere above me, a chair scraped. The elevator groaned into motion. A knock sounded at my door. June stood in the hallway holding the green-handled fork. "You stole this," she said. "I was going to return it. You put it in your plant. Someone put it in my plant." Likely story. I opened the door wider. "Come in," I said. "I have cake."